We'll call to order the Douglas County Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. Please note that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the Legislative Chamber alongside an automatic external defibrillator. Please stand for the pledge. First item of business is the Douglas County Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Borgeson, Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Kavanaugh, Commissioner Friend, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Rogers, Mr. Chair.
Here. First, we have items A and B. A being the approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. B being a call for a meeting and set Tuesday, October 29th, 2024 as date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property. Do I have a motion and a second? Second. Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next, we have our resolutions, items C through E, which we can take in block plus adjournment, if so desired. Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Discussion, was there anybody here to speak on resolution C through E of their Board of Equalization? If not, we'll vote. Oh, apologies, Commissioner Kavanaugh, Mr. Light, go ahead.
Thank you. I just draw people's attention to item C there, which is a resolution setting tax levies for necessary taxes as provided by Nebraska Revenue Statute 77-1601. I think this is an annual statutory requirement that we have to just forward the mill levies of all the governmental subdivisions in Douglas County. That's your property taxes. So what this says is what you're going to pay in property tax to the school district, to the city, to the county, to whoever has property taxing authority in Douglas County. It's an important thing. And if you look at it, and you look at the same one last year, you can also see whose mill levy went up, whose mill levy went down, whose mill levy stayed the same. That's an important thing. So I just point this out as kind of a pay attention moment. This is a big thing. It happens every year. Give you a real good snapshot of where you are in terms of your property tax liability. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, we'll vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. That concludes Board of Equalization. We shall now go into the Douglas County Board of Corrections. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Borgeson? Commissioner Boyle? Commissioner Kavanaugh? Commissioner Friend? Commissioner Morgan? Commissioner Rogers? Mr. Chair.
Here. First, we have the approval of the minutes of the Board of Corrections meeting held Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. Do I have a motion and a second? Second. Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next, we shall invite Director Myers and team to report on the Corrections Department.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Michael Myers, Director of Corrections for Douglas County. You have before you my report for the month of September. After the third month of the fiscal year, we are $1,236,186 under budget. There were $361,637 spent on overtime costs. That is a decrease of over $100,000 from the previous month. And nearly $1 million in bond payments was processed by our Records Division. Enclosure number 2, Community Corrections and Reentry Services. The Sanction Center and Transitional Discharge Center placed a total of 11 individuals into community corrections, saving a combined 41 jail bed days. Work release admitted 24 individuals. House arrest admitted 46 individuals. The Reentry Assistance Program, or RAP, admitted 27, and 2 individuals completed a GED. Reentry Services and Therapeutic Communities admitted 57 individuals into therapeutic community housing units. A couple of things that I haven't highlighted in the past that I probably should be talking more about are our trade certifications. We currently offer 3 of them. Forklift trade certifications in electrical safety are provided through the Nebraska Safety Council, and ServSafe is provided through the National Restaurant Association, and our individuals in the jail are able to participate and get these certifications, which can benefit their opportunities for employment post-release. Another stat that it's always in the report that I haven't talked about is the GED wait list. We have tremendous staff in our GED that get a lot of positive results, but I decided to highlight for you that we have 133 individuals on the wait list for GED. And that is a pretty consistent number. That is in your tab number 2. If you went through that, you would, but that's a pretty consistent number over time. So you'll be hearing more from me about that in the future in terms of possible solutions and remedies for that. 18 individuals were referred to intensive outpatient treatment, and 28 individuals received substance use disorder evaluations. Turning to pretrial services, 288 individuals were placed on pretrial release. 1,368 individuals were supervised on pretrial release over the course of the month. 597 individuals participated in the 24/7 sobriety program. 160 individuals were supervised via GPS monitors, saving 3,612 jail bed days. In terms of operational savings to Douglas County, that theoretically translates into $577,920 in savings of detention costs. And you'll notice that number is, if you recall from the previous numbers, is significantly larger, and that is because we just recently adjusted the per diem to reflect the increased cost of our medical contract, which took effect in September. And lastly, the law library on the tablet system continues to demonstrate increased access with cost efficiencies for Douglas County. Enclosure number 3, compliance. Regular reporting of all activities for all accreditations continues. Enclosure number 4, personnel. 4 officers below the rank of sergeant left employment in September, and that includes 1 retirement. As of September 30th, we were 100% staffed among all correctional officer ranks. And our final academy of the year actually began this morning, and we did have 19 new officers join our ranks. 5 officers were promoted from CO1 to CO2, and I want to congratulate Officer Forrest Dooley and Work Release Administrator John Skanes, who retired after distinguished careers with the Department of Corrections. Congratulations to Jelani Ballard, who was promoted to the rank of to lieutenant. And congratulations to Hannah Sullivan, who was named our new Work Release Administrator. Enclosure number 5, population. We had 1,288 admissions. We had 1,344 releases. Our high count for the month was 1,091, and our low count was 987. And Commissioner Kavanaugh, you had asked me to tell you when we ever hit our record low, and I'll be officially reporting that next month because it happened this month. But a few days ago, we were at 949, which in my 17 years here, the lowest that I can recall is in the 960s. Our average daily population was 1,031. That's a decrease of 59 from the previous month. The average length of stay for inmates released in September, 48% of inmates, the overall average length of stay was 30 days. 48% of inmates stayed longer than 72 hours. The average length of stay for those individuals was 57 days. 52% of inmates were released within 72 hours of being booked, and the average length of stay for these inmates was 1.32 days. There were 90 custodial sanctioned bed days. The U.S. Marshal population remained stable. The average daily felony pretrial population was 700, a decrease. The average daily misdemeanor population was 127, also a decrease. Probation violations decreased. 20% of our population were between the ages of 18 and 24. 66% of our population were minorities. 14% of our population were female. And 19% of our population were homeless or nearly homeless. For our medical and mental health reports, as you know, we switched vendors from WellPath to Wexford. The reports in the new electronic medical records system are being written, and some of the data initially just did not seem to make sense. So I chose to not provide you data rather than provide you data that I wasn't 100% sure of its accuracy. So once those customized reports have been tested and validated, we will backdate those numbers so you have accurate data for year-to-date going forward. Enclosure number 8, Security Operations and Honor Guard. The Crisis Negotiation Team, or CNT, was deployed 6 times. Incidents included mentally ill individuals who took control of their meal hatches on their cell door, an individual who made multiple self-harm attempts, and an individual refusing to be moved to a cell where he could be observed for suicide precautions. Lastly, CNT worked in conjunction with our CERT team to assist a severely mentally ill individual to comply with providing a court-ordered DNA sample. All incidences were resolved with minimal or no force, and no injuries were reported. Our emergency response team, or CERT, was deployed twice, both in conjunctions with the CNT deployments that I already described. There were 8 searches conducted. Minor contraband included items modified for tattooing and extra linens. Significant contraband included suspected K2 and suspected methamphetamine. The Honor Guard was deployed for the funeral of Ryan Barker, which I will elaborate further on at the conclusion of my report. Turning into closure number 9, staff development, wellness, and retention. 10 individuals were interviewed for correctional officer positions. 67 applications were received. Nearly 200 staff members have completed the 24 hours of training for strategic inmate management philosophy. 11 staff members utilized the Wellness and Retention Office for the first time. 3 staff members were referred to external mental health resources, and peer support was deployed following the death of Ryan Barker. And we are, as a department, exploring becoming the first correctional facility in the nation to have an accredited corrections wellness program. It's very early in those discussions, so more to that on that to come in the future. And with that, I'm going to bring up Captain Leon Valkyr. He's our Captain of Staff Development, who is going to talk more about the Strategic Inmate Management Initiative at Douglas County.
Hi, good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I apologize in advance. I've been battling this sore throat for a few days now. As Director Meyer stated, I'm Leon Valkyr, Captain of Staff Development for the Department of Corrections. Here to talk a little bit about strategic inmate management. So back when I started originally in 2001, we were making the transition to direct supervision, which direct supervision deals a little bit more with eliminating the barriers between corrections officers and the inmates. That meant getting the officers out of the offices and eliminating the offices. We put podiums in the housing units. We took our officers out of our enclosed bubble areas and into the office or into the modules in the annex side. And ever since then, we've been focused on direct supervision. From our initial academy class, we've been instructing all of our new officers in direct supervision. We've never really had any research training or anything further from day one when it comes to direct supervision. As time passed, we reached out to the National Institute of Corrections as we seek to certify some more instructors in direct supervision, at which time we found out that the National Institute of Corrections no longer supports direct supervision. Over the time, they've implemented something that was called inmate behavior management, which dealt more with how to manage the inmates in the housing units, how to interact more with them. And at the time, they had kind of married the two, direct supervision, inmate behavior management, and came up with strategic inmate management. So that being said, that is the course that they were taking now. So it was an undertaking. We had to apply through them as they were seeking funding, and all the costs of this initial training is covered by the National Institute of Corrections. They came out in March, and they trained, in conjunction with Sarpy County, all of our executive staff for 40 hours on the philosophy of strategic inmate management. And then they further came out later in, I believe it was June or early July, and not only certified some of our officers, but also certified our instructors. And since then, we've been working with our staff to try to certify some of our staff with strategic inmate management. And I do have a PowerPoint here kind of talking a little bit about the foundation of strategic inmate management. It separates what direct supervision was and what inmate behavior management was to what SIM now is. Direct supervision was about effective control, effective supervision, the safety and the staff of the inmates, and classification orientation. Inmate behavior management was more about assessing the risk and need and assigning inmates to housing, meeting basic needs, and setting and conveying expectations, the supervising of inmates, and keeping inmates productively occupied. SIM is the intentional integration of principles and strategies of direct supervision and the elements of inmate behavior management as a unified operational philosophy. It's an evolution of the direct supervision and inmate behavior management. Managing inmate behavior is the core function of SIM. In the past, jails have emphasized on the physical containment of inmates versus actually supervising them or meeting their basic needs and managing their behavior. This has resulted in problems commonly associated with jails, such as violence, contraband, unsanitary conditions, and just overall no control of your housing units. Now, we have set up staff expectations as we transition to SIM, and one of the big things is professionalism. We are training our officers 24 hours of SIM training, and then our supervisors will get an additional day of SIM training. So they will get 32 hours. So we expect our staff to be professional, not only act professional, look professional. They should maintain level-headed, neutral stance. They should be observant, paying attention. One of the key factors is self-control. Staff should have control over themselves before exercising any authority over others. Means how they react to challenges and situations. We expect them to be professional when they react to these types of situations, maintain their composure rather than reacting impulsively or emotionally. Teamwork. Staff should work together to promote teamwork and role model how the organization will meet the future challenges. And staff should participate in ongoing development and focus on areas such as decision-making, strategies, team building, and collaboration. And part of that ongoing development is something we have not done in the past with direct supervision, is we will have a recertification course in SIM, 8 hours every year in class to kind of reinstall some of these expectations and the philosophy to make sure it stays fresh in everybody's mind. We also have supervisor expectations. Supervisors, they should mentor and facilitate staff development. They should provide guidance and correction when needed, and they should also be supportive of their staff. They're also there for responsibility for ensuring that the agency policies and procedures are followed. They should enforce policies and hold staff accountable. And one of the most important things for our supervisors is they should be present in the facility, modeling the proper interactions with inmates and demonstrating professional communication methods. They should also check on activities taking place in the facility and confirm that the rounds and other duties are being performed properly. Their role is a supportive role for the officers. They know that the philosophies of the officers and what they need to implement. What we expect from our supervisors is to do rounds, answer questions, interact with the officers, and get to know their officers that they work with on their team. Establish that rapport with them so they feel comfortable communicating back and forth, and so the officers feel comfortable communicating their concerns and issues with them, and also ensuring that the officers are doing their rounds and actually interacting with the inmates as they should. The SIM goals are to improve the quality of life for the incarcerated population and staff. Make sure inmates are better off when they leave than when they came in. Prepare inmates for reintegration in the community through increased reformative programming and daily activities. making sure that the basic needs of inmates such as food, medical, mental health programs, activities are not only met but exceeded. And that is another key component of SIM. We're not only training our officers in SIM, we're also training our contracted staff. We have medical, we have records, we have our facilities management, we also have commissary. We're training everybody in SIM because everybody plays a key role when it comes to SIM. Improving the quality of life means actually that, you know, their food needs are met, their food complaints, grievances are answered in a timely manner, and are actually not just answered, they're actually looked into and addressed. Medical concerns, mental health concerns, making sure that those are also met. If an inmate has a complaint or has a grievance or has an issue, their basic needs are met, they're answered appropriately. So those are the basic needs that we talk about when we're talking about the needs of the inmates that are met. Programs, that's one of the things that we're looking at is increasing the amount of programs that we have in the housing units. And not only just general programs, but programs to meet the needs of a specific housing unit. A minimum security housing unit will require different type of programs than a maximum security housing unit. Just because, you know, minimum security, they may be reintegrating into the community much quicker. And so they may need different types of programs. So we have to reevaluate all the type of programs and activities that we have to meet the needs of that specific housing unit and the population in those housing units. Overall, one of the goals is to reduce the overall disruptions, such as fights, inmate theft, strong arming, you know, all those types of things in the housing unit. And also, one of the goals is to increase staff retention because we expect working in the housing units to be, I don't want to say more enjoyable, but it should be an easier transition when you are communicating with the inmates, interacting with them. The goal is to build a rapport with them to where you can actually communicate with them and get the feel of what's going on in your housing unit. Officers will sometimes ask us, so when we go live in a housing unit with SIM, what is the difference? How are we going to be able to tell it's a SIM unit? And my response to them is initially, you won't see a change. It's going to take time. Initially, you walk into the housing unit, say housing unit 18, which is already transitioned into SIM, and you'll be like, well, this looks like another housing unit. It does initially, but the goal is over time is those officers will build rapport with those inmates, they will communicate with them, they will interact with them, and through that rapport, we expect there to be increased sanitation. We've already doubled all of our sanitation products throughout the 4 housing units that we have gone live. So we expect cleaner housing units, quieter housing units, inmates that are actually interacting, participating in programs, participating in activities, and they don't have time to, say, be worried about fighting or theft because they're busy in their housing units. And the officers will also be able to establish the feel of their housing. They'll be able to know when something is off. They'll be able to see, like, something doesn't feel right about my housing like it has been for the last few days. So hopefully they'll be able to notice when things are off and be able to try to get to the bottom of things before they escalate. So that is what we expect over time. Initially, it will look the same. Over time, it will be a cleaner, quieter, more active housing unit with the staff and the inmates. So we've also established room standards, which we can see on some photos, and we have these available in all of our housing units now for expectations for our inmates. And these are how we expect our beds to be made and our rooms to look within our different types of cells that we have in housing that we have in our facility. And a lot of SIM also doesn't just focus on our staff, it also focuses on holding our inmates accountable. One of the things that our officers are inquiring about is, well, we can't lock our inmates down because of SIM. What I tell them is, initially, we expect our lockdowns to increase because we're holding our inmates accountable to sanitation in their rooms, sanitation in their housing units, overall in the day room, and behavior. It is managing our behavior. So we expect initially to have some increase in lockdowns while inmates are resistant to doing the basics of cleaning and maintaining their standards in the rooms. But over time, we expect that to go down. So I let them know that SIM doesn't mean you can't lock inmates down. No, you hold them accountable. And, there are privileges that, they get to partake in, which is being out in the day room and watching TV and engaging in activities, and those are privileges. And if they're not cleaning in the room or they're not behaving as such, those privileges can be taken away. One of the activities that we did recently with Lieutenant Sandusky went up into our 2 sim units that we had at the time, and they had a pumpkin coloring contest. So she took a bunch of markers up and some coloring paper, and they partook in some coloring of some pumpkins, and then we took that and hung them up in our lobby. So anybody that comes into our lobby can see the paintings that they did, and it was very well received in the housing units. This here is housing unit 19, and that was just one of the activities that we did. And we plan on increasing more activities in our housing units and doing more things like this with the population to kind of keep them busy. And we're exploring different ideas. We've been upstairs to talk to the inmates and kind of getting ideas from them as to things that they want to do. So it's a work in progress. So far, we have trained, to this date, 229 out of 413 custody staff have received SIM training. And like I said, we are also training our non-custody staff as well for the SIM training. So, does anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much for that report. We're going to first go to Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Stay up here for a second. And thank you, Mike, and I'm sorry, your name?
Leon Valkyr,
Okay. What rank are you?
Captain
Captain.
of Staff Development.
Thanks for this. A couple of things. The funding for this, do you have an idea of what we're spending to fund this program? Either one, I don't know.
So as Captain Valkyr said, then the National Institute of Corrections funded all the external support and continued ongoing support that they're going to be providing to us. We have an investment in training. This training will supplant some of our other training hours that we're required to do. I guess I haven't done a calculation to know, like, are we going above and beyond the minimum training hours to implement this, which would incur some, costs of the staff's time to train. But to me, it's a very wise investment in the development of our staff and pushing the agency forward. But I can try to come up with a rough figure for you in a future report.
Sure. In conversations with corrections officers, it's my understanding that this SIM training takes a day, and these 239 officers have spent that day or a portion of that day going to this orientation. And so that times that would be a cost to us.
So it's actually a 3-day training.
Oh, 3 days.
3 days. But like I said, if they weren't doing this training, we have a minimum number of training hours to do annually anyway. So if they weren't doing SIM, they'd be doing something else. So that some of that cost may be a wash.
Right. I'm just trying to get some, this would be training-wise, I guess, but this is a specific program, so it's easier to capture that cost. This grant that we received, what was the amount of that?
So it was not a grant of money, it was a grant of assistance, technical assistance at no cost. So the National Institute of Corrections has sent teams to Douglas County multiple times and continues to consult with us in meetings. We have basically 3 different levels of meetings that happen on a recurring basis that they participate in. We're not paying anything for that consultation. That's all provided through the National Institute of Corrections, through the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Are we a member of the National Institute of Corrections?
So that nobody's really a member. NIC is just a federal agency, and I misspoke. It's part of the Bureau of Prisons, not Bureau of Justice Assistance. So it is just a federal organization that we availed their services.
Do they accreditate us in any form?
No, they're not an accrediting body.
So they're simply a federal support agency for
Correct.
corrections.
They're a training and support agency.
Okay. In looking through here, and I don't see anything that we wouldn't want to do here. Makes perfect sense. What I don't see is reporting metrics back to us. I see up the chain of command, but it would be good to know, and you pointed out some of these things that, would be quantifiable to us to show before SIM, we had this, and after SIM, we had that. And I don't know what time frame we would be talking about, 6 months or a year. You'd want to have some time, to let this set in. But could we have a report back on a regular?
You absolutely can. We will be tracking incidences that happen pre and post the implementation of this. It'll be sort of a piecemeal process at first because we're converting a few housing units at a time over a period of at least 6 months to allow for the training and prep and the lessons learned. It's good to learn lessons on a small scale.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain, for your efforts.
Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Boyle.
And I was going to ask a similar question about quantifying results from a SIM unit. So my first question, though, is how do patients, inmates, end up in a SIM unit? Are they chosen, or is it just a unit that you decide to convert?
They're just units that we converted. The jail will be a SIM jail, period, across the board. As soon as we get everybody trained and get the resources in each housing unit that we need. So there really won't be any sort of a selection process, and there really wasn't this time. We picked one area of the jail to start training staff on, and then we rolled out housing units 2 at a time within that area of the jail.
So just subjectively in that particular housing unit, have you found an improvement in employee morale and behavior of the inmates?
We've been up there to talk to the inmates. The inmates seem very inquisitive right now. They seem excited. They have multiple ideas. So far, what we're getting from the inmates is they're excited. They're ready for a change. They also have a lot of questions, but I think it's positive conversations that we're having with them. Our staff seem to be engaged. They seem to be, positively moving forward. So they're also excited. They're wanting that back and forth with inmates. They're looking for the stabilization of the housing unit. So I think it's moving in the right direction.
So then are these longer-term inmates? That it's not the folks that come in and are turned around in a weekend, or does it make a difference?
So one of the housing units that we have now is a max housing unit. Housing unit 16 is one that we just converted last week to SIM. Other than that, we're on our 2D floor, so there are celled housing units. So it has, one of them is a female housing unit, which has a mixture of minimum and, medium inmates in it. So, and one of the other ones is our program unit, which has also a mixture. So, but we did bring one of our max units online last week, so.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I don't understand min and max.
Oh, those are custody levels, I'm sorry. So minimum custody levels, which are minor offenses to maximum offenses for custody levels.
Good. And then again, how long has this program been? When did this get started? The SIM program?
In our facility,
Mm-hmm.
we brought it online in September. But we've been,
Okay.
our initial training with the NIC started back in March with our executive staff. So, and we plan on running, hopefully going live with all of our housing units by March of next year.
Perfect. And then as far as the programming, I know part of the goal is to reintegrate inmates to, can you give an example of some of the programming that you do that's different from regular programming in the correction center to help with that?
So right now, we're still exploring some of the programming to do. What we have integrated currently is we have some AA classes that we have established. What we did is we're actually placing like a folder on our computer for our staff to be able to do printouts for the inmates to actually be able to conduct their own classes without having to have an instructor in there. So we're just doing some of the basic stuff while we're working on trying to see what fits our population for each housing unit. So we're kind of in the beginning stages of working with our programs coordinator to try to get some of those programs up and running.
Great. All right. Great. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Borgerson.
Good morning. I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. It's more understandable now since you've explained what the process and philosophy is behind it. And I think anything that provides some better stability and hope and resources to those that are incarcerated to get ready for them to go back out into the community is a plus. And so congratulations on this, and I look forward to hearing the updates on it. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, thanks for the presentation. Good information. We'll dig into it, obviously, a little bit deeper. I've been to some AJA conferences, and they've been great. And not just from the standpoint of seeing some of the stuff that AJA, I know this isn't tied to that, but when I walk around at those conferences and when I also observe a lot of the other changes we make at a governmental subdivision level, governmental subdivisions are creatures of habit, right? So just out of curiosity, are there models out there, Polk County, Hennepin, Ramsey, anybody else doing this type of thing or anything close to it as far as you know? So Commissioner Kavanaugh alluded to some metrics. Some of those jurisdictions probably have some metrics and they show success stories.
So strategic inmate management was developed actually a few years back. Its real rollout by NIC was basically halted by COVID for a few years. So there are approximately a dozen agencies in the nation that have gotten this training. From what NIC has said is that because of COVID and other impacts, it's sort of partially implemented in a lot of places. There's basically maybe a handful that are really doing it full well. And, that I want to say I was very impressed with Leon and his team and our staff that went through the training that when NIC came back, was it July? And basically trained our trainers, essentially. And that group of people did a presentation to our executive team. They were enthusiastic, they were engaged, they were the most excited. You don't see a lot of excitement from people working in jails. You actually had some enthusiasm and excitement shown by our staff after that training. And it was after that training that NIC offered to provide us ongoing support kind of on an indefinite basis because they saw the potential in us to become a model site for SIM. And to maybe that we had the buy-in from, throughout all parts of our organization to do this, do it right, and become the place that they send other people to learn from. So I'm pretty excited about that opportunity, and even more excited that our staff are being recognized by the experts in the field for having the potential to really do this.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments on this item? If not, thank you again for the reports, and I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Commissioner?
Yes,
I just
go
had
ahead.
a couple other things just
Sure.
to wrap up.
Okay, go ahead.
Outside of that. I wanted to commend our custody staff, especially Officer Jeffrey Lee and Sergeant Michael Rolfe, and our medical team who successfully intervened when individuals were attempting to self-harm. Over a period of 3 weeks, we had 4 incidences where individuals attempted to end their lives while in custody. I also want to thank you as commissioners for supporting and funding the replacement of our top bunks and the installation of the safety netting and housing units, which has saved several lives already. I cannot promise you that we will never have another bad outcome. I actually would expect one at some point. But by continually working to make DCDC safer through facilities improvement, staff training, and equipping our officers with items on their duty belts, such as Narcan and tourniquets, we have been and will continue to save lives. And lastly, as referenced earlier, we mourned the passing of Officer Ryan Parker. Our department seems to be confronted more often by these losses than we should be. but I'm always amazed by our staff's response to these crises. Our staff provided weeks of support to Ryan's mother, who was here alone, didn't live here. Our staff drove her around town. Our staff, she's has a minor visual impairment. Our staff walked her around the hospital, helped her get to where she needed to be. It's provided her support for the weeks that Ryan was hospitalized. They also had a fundraiser for Ryan, which was planned before he passed, but was actually held after he passed. And our staff, in one day, raised $8,000 to provide to Ryan's mother for the expenses that she has incurred. And Ryan will be commemorated on our memorial wall at the Department of Corrections, where his service to Douglas County will always be remembered. And with that, my report is concluded.
Thank you, Director Myers. I see a light. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you, Mike, and condolences to the family. Corrections really does a great job of supporting their own, and that's admirable. Thanks. Just a couple quick questions. You won't be surprised. Average daily population at 1,031, down 59 from last month, and you, as you noted, the record in your time, my time, 949. So the trend is positive, downward. An important metric on this, because the overwhelming bulk of the correction department's budget is supported by property tax, is that this translates into quantifiable savings to the taxpayers. And you point this out in kind of a separate item, but I think it's important to connect the dots here. That's, I think, 3,612 bed days. Did I see that correctly?
Yeah, those.
And that's
correct.
$577,920, which might even be on the low side. But that's real savings, unless I'm figuring this wrong.
No, you are correct, and we also gain savings because we work hard to consolidate housing units, and every housing unit that's closed saves the taxpayers over $1,000 a day. We currently, at least as of last week, had 5 housing units closed. I would think with the recent continued decline in the population, we may be able to hopefully consolidate another housing unit and have even more closed.
That's good progress, and I commend you for you and the corrections personnel to getting us to that point. Also at 100% staffing for corrections officers, I didn't see the breakout of that you usually have from level to level. And I think it was contained in like 4 or 5, or at least it was referenced, but when I turned to 4 or 5, I didn't see it there.
It's on page 6 in enclosure number 1.
Oh, I see, okay. And, again, that's steady progress over where we were a couple of years ago, so that we're at 99% overall, but in those key categories of the corrections officers, 100% in COs, 101% actually, 100% in sergeants, 93% in lieutenants. That's great progress. Thanks. One definitional thing, and I should know this, but I don't, is custodial sanctioned beds. What are custodial sanctioned beds?
This is something that I think got included in this report before my tenure, when it was a fairly new concept. This goes back to some statutory changes. I believe that was LB 605 that we talked about for years and years. So this is a mechanism primarily, well, for us it's exclusively probation, where probation can, prior to revoking a probation, can kind of give somebody a wake-up call and send them to us for a period of, it could be anywhere from 1 to 30 days at a time. And it gives hopefully individuals who are on probation who aren't really following the terms of their probation, an opportunity to see that it's in their best interest to change
Thank
their
you.
ways.
And there are 90 of those. This kind of goes to the breakout on beds, and we might have to come back for one last bite of this, which
That's done.
shows. Are we done?
We can come back, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Kavanaugh. We'll go to Commissioner Boyle.
So thanks again for the report. The question I have, I brought it up before, is you mentioned that 19% of the corrections population is homeless. I know that can be a challenge, and I know you've gone over it before, but could you just go over again what we do for that homeless population, number one, and number two, is there a seasonal variation of this, and how do you really, what have you done to try to make sure those folks don't stay incarcerated?
So what we do for those folks is going to vary pretty dramatically. Sometimes the offenses that they're brought into custody with are typically offenses that people don't stay in jail for very long. Sometimes the judges will let them out at their first court appearance if it's a trespassing charge or something like that. So in some of those cases, especially depending upon the day of the week and, if the weekend's involved, we may not have the opportunity to do much meaningful work. We do have our reentry specialists for people that we do have an opportunity to engage with, that they provide resources and referrals, and if they're with us long enough, engage them in programs, and we get them into our medical and mental health services to try and get folks stabilized while they're in our custody, and then make those connections to community resources and housing to support them after they're released. Like I said, sometimes the system works too fast and people get out too quickly for us to be able to do that. We are looking to reinstate a service that we had a few years ago. It's just basically been a staffing issue for us. We did have someone in place in the past where we had a reentry specialist that worked later into the evening and basically triaged people on their way out. So it was basically an additional step in the release process to provide, do you need a bus pass? Is there somebody we can call for you? Do you need, is there, medications that you need, or, that we can call a pharmacy for you? Whatever, you're not going to work miracles in a few minutes on the way out the door, but you at least try and get people pointed in the right direction and get them connected with some caring person on the outside, and hopefully for the best with that.
So you mentioned triaging people out. Do you know if, this is not your area, but if OPD or the Sheriff's Department, if they have a way to triage people on the way in so they don't end up, certainly a trespassing charge doesn't necessarily maybe warrant an overnight stay in the correction center, which is a cost to taxpayers, and it's not necessarily good for the homeless person either,
So I know both departments have resources. I don't know that I should speak. I'm not knowledgeable enough to speak on their behalf on this issue, but they both have co-responders and mental health services embedded in their departments, and we have another idea that we want to bring forth, and kind of at a triage at the front door of the jail, to see, hey, is there any place else that this person, we serve a purpose, and I'm not trying to shirk that responsibility. But if there is another avenue that might have a more effective long-term outcome for the individual, if we pause for a moment and explore that with law enforcement, that may be an outcome that's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. And Milford, this is a 2-minute third round for Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thanks. Real quick, Mike. We have 66% minority majority, with the leading demographic being African Americans with 45%, Hispanics with 15%, and others with 6%. Our Caucasian population is 34%. I know you don't have any control over this, but it seems to be either staying or going up slightly every month. And that goes, to this homeless population. I'm always reminded of Will Rogers, social philosopher, who said, it's not a crime to be poor in the United States, but it might as well be. And we reflect that in our population in the corrections month after month after month. I mean, if we did economic demographics rather than racial demographics or housing demographics, I think we'd find the average corrections inmate to be on the low side of the economic scale rather than on the high side. That's not because people who make more money are more honest. It's simply that we lock up more people who are poor. I just make this point in passing because you have no control over that. The final point that I would bring up here is the average length of stay looks like it's 30 days, with 52% staying less than 72 hours. Average length of stay in that cohort is 1.3 days. And 48% staying more than 72 hours. Average length of stay in that cohort is 57 days. But overall, people are there for 30 days, which is
That's
a
correct.
transient population. Right. I appreciate all you do on these reports, and they get better and better as we hone them over time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Borgerson.
I just wanted to comment that I'm glad to hear you talk about the quote assessment type of a center prior to them coming in. I was part of a group that looked at San Antonio way back when that has such a center, which is beneficial for both the individual as well as us as a correction facility overseer. So whatever I can do to help on that, I'd be happy to, because it's been something that I think we've sorely needed and just haven't gotten to the point where we have gotten it yet.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from commissioners or public? Kent, do you have one?
Thank you, Commissioners. Kent Holm, Environmental Services Director. I'm here just to say a word about Ryan Barker. Ryan was part of the Mentoring 360 cohort this year, and he was one of my mentees. We would have been meeting tomorrow, so we will miss him. The last meeting we had in August, I know he wasn't feeling well, but he wanted to be part of the group, so he called into our meeting. So he was part of that, but we will miss him. So, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Kent. Any other comments or questions from public or commissioners? If not, I'll take that motion for adjournment. Thank you, Director Myers. Motion by Borgeson, second by Rogers. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. We'll now jump into our Douglas County Board of Commissioners meeting. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Borgeson, Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Kavanaugh, Commissioner Friend, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Rogers, Mr. Chair.
Here. First item of business is item A, approval of minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. And item B, approval of claims submitted for payment process through Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. Do I have a motion and a second? Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda, items A through G. Do I have a motion and a second for discussion? Motion by Rogers, second by Friend. Any comments or questions on consent agenda? Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you. On item C, This is approval of agreement for grant-funded facilitation services by Category 1 Consulting as required by FY23 OJJDP Building Local Continuum of Care to Support Youth Success. 180,000 grant-funded, budgeted. And Ms. Havakati, could you expand on this a little bit for us?
Sure, Kim Havakati, Deputy County Administrator. This grant is an 18-month Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act planning grant for our community to come together to create a continuum of care, looking at the strengths, weaknesses, and gaps within our juvenile justice system. The contract that's before you, we will be doing over the next 3 months over 50 focus groups within our community within Douglas County, everything from providers. We will do about 30 youth and family focus groups. We will be doing it with our system partners. And then come spring, the Strategic Planning Council will put recommendations forward on where our strengths, gaps, and weaknesses are within our juvenile justice system here.
Thank you. And these are federal funds, correct?
These are federal funds, and then there was a requirement under the grant that you had to have an external facilitator and an external evaluator for this grant.
So I only bring this up because this is another example of monies that we're spending to assist, supposedly, youth who are involved in the juvenile justice system or otherwise having difficulties. And it disturbs me because, you know, we've spent lots and lots of money, and sometimes it never gets to the actual youth who are having these problems. The most glaring example, of course, is the $27 million vacant kids jail, not a penny of which has helped any child in Douglas County. But I'm concerned when we get these grants for external facilitator component of a federal grant. You know, that's $180,000, and you could do a lot for a kid with $180,000. I'm not, and I read the backup documentation and everything. I'm not commenting on the quality of this. I'm just saying it doesn't appear that this will assist any individual child in Douglas County live a better life. We have plenty of studies. You know, we've looked at plenty of ways to do this. Let's just do it. Let's just actually take the resources and bring them in touch with the children in need and eliminate studies and facilitators and things like this, like the kids' jail, which don't do anything for the children and are very, very expensive. This one, fortunately, is coming out of the federal pocket, not out of the local property taxpayers' pocket, but still. I mean, let's have the rubber meet the road and see if we can get some of these programs to actually assist a child in our community. I have one more item, Mr. Chairman, if I can. Yeah. On item G, I just note for the record that this is a Teamsters General Drivers and Helpers Union contract over the next, I believe, 3 years for the nurses and medical aides and nursing assistants, restorative aides and psychiatric technicians in our system, Douglas County Health Center, Douglas County Behavioral Health. These people do great work, and this 3-year contract with their collective bargaining unit, the Teamsters, is for a 3% raise over 3 years, 3% each year. Probably the best thing that we do in Douglas County is provide these health services. So just so the public knows what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Borgeson.
I would just like to publicly request, because of some comments that have been made about the services and programs that we currently have in place that are helping our children and families, but we just don't know because we haven't had anybody before us that are providing these services. And I have requested that they come before the board because of these comments. There are a lot of community providers that are doing a lot of good things for our kids and our families. And I just think it's vitally important that when we continue to focus on a very small group of individuals, and we should, but a small group of individuals that are constant repeat offenders. If we would flip that chart and start talking about those that we have helped, provided those services, those programs, that hope for them to turn their lives around and help their families, I think our narrative would be way different than what it has been for the last few years. So I am requesting that we have those providers that we fund come and introduce themselves, tell us what they do, tell us how many children and families they support and what they've done and what their successes are. Because again, there is a lot of good things that are happening and we just need to know about it.
Thank you. Commissioner Rogers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to just say some of the comments in respects to not understanding how this grant would help. I think they're distorted. Actually, they're very, they're comments made that I think are very uninformed, because the tie of this grant is supposed to connect the dots from the beginning to the end. I think the federal government is trying to get it on record and get the systems there to work through that point of view. Now, you know, I think this feels like the book that says every time you say an elephant, try not to think of an elephant, because the tie to what this has to the building is totally a mystery to me. But the tie that it does have, in some respects, is getting that group of people in the room to move on the issues that have held us back from that for a while. And the issues that have held us back is the connecting end of what that grant's supposed to do, and is the service piece. So, you know, if there's any desire to move on that piece, the point of it is to push for players in the system to fulfill their end of it. The tie of it is to tie the strings together from in and have the serious conversation of how you move and connect the dots to be able to close the loopholes that are there that put us in the situation that we are now. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. I think it would be a good thing to have a report on all of the grant programs that we have authorized over the last couple of years, how much they were, and what children they actually benefited. And if you can't see a connection between the $27 million that was spent on the empty kids jail and children in our community, I guess you're not looking too hard, because that building sits empty. It's across the street. You can go see it right now. And that $27 million could have actually been used to help children in Douglas County. It wasn't. It was used for real estate and construction purposes. Not a penny of it went to the children. So all I'm saying is, let's look at that. I welcome that, because it concerns me that we spend money almost every board meeting that we have on things to facilitate or to study or to consult with shareholders. And I'm more kind of interested in helping individual children and their families. So if we're going to have that, let's have it comprehensively. And what are we spending? We've got a whole group of folks up on 9. We've got a building across the street. We've got another building on 42nd Street. I noticed that folks are here from the youth center. And I think those people are actually doing a good job with children every day. But beyond that, a lot of these things, I'm missing the connection between what this money is going for and what the children are actually getting. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rogers?
Yeah, I do. I think you're missing the connection on it, because the fact is, this money is to help sharpen the system, making the tie between the building. The issue with that building can be solved without this money right now. The issue with that building is held up because you have points in the system that are not fulfilling their point. They're fulfilling their mission. And so, yeah, I think there is a point of missing it, because this is a bigger view of the system, the point where it ties to the building. The building can be open in 3 months if other people in the system were held to their responsibility. So yeah, there probably is some doubt in regards to what's going on in the system, but from the end of it, because I don't think it's clearly, well, I think there's a lot of things being merged here to some degree that's putting a taint on that to some degree. And my point of it is to make sure that, you know, this just doesn't go unanswered and is thrown out there and continues to confuse people more. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Morgan?
I feel that I need to make a couple comments concerning that facility. First of all, we've seen a tremendous increase in the last 5 years since COVID in our youth. We were running around 60 youth in the facility, and the numbers were going down at that time, 5 years, 6 years ago when we started the discussion of the size. I also, at this board meeting some years ago, 6 years ago, thereabouts, when we talked about that facility spending the money, which was going to be approximately $22 million of county monies, and the foundation was going to contribute $5 million, a foundation in Omaha, which we were pleased about. I suggested we add a floor, and that's a matter of record, unfinished at a cost of about $2 million. I did not get the support of 4 members of the board, 3 other members to go along with that. I said we'd have a use for it someday because our city's going to continue to grow. But I do want to go back to saying what I said in the beginning. We have seen a tremendous, unfortunately, number of youth in our facility from what it was 6 years ago. And the sheriff, I'm certain, can tell us how much we're seeing with 11 and 12-year-olds involved in some pretty sad situations in our community. And the fact is, if we were to open that facility and use the other facility for that overflow, the cost would be, from what I understand, and I know our chairman and others have been involved in looking at that, somewhere around $4.5 million per year to operate the two. And that's why financially it makes sense at this time to not open that facility. I think we've been running right at it 90 or thereabouts. Sometimes even I think we've been in the triple digits occasionally, and we've dropped into the 88, 87 number too. But that is the reason, and we're looking at some good options and working with others to do that, and I'm appreciative of what our chairman and vice chairman, Roger Garcia and Mike Friend. I haven't been in those meetings, but I know with my questions that you're working hard to look at some of the options that we can do that will be positive as far as youth in the state of Nebraska. So I just find it necessary to comment in response to some of the comments made here by Commissioner Kavanaugh continually on that waste.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. We'll go to Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I think, and this isn't meant to be a lecture, but I think it's interesting when we see things on our agenda that say grant funded. Forgive me, it isn't meant to be a lecture, but people get your hands around the idea of how the federal government, the state, and the county spends an individual taxpayer's money. When we see a grant at the county level and we apply for it, when we apply for that grant for a variety of reasons, we either get the grant or we don't. And if we didn't get that grant money, it goes to a different jurisdiction. Anybody that thinks that $180,000 is going back into from a federal standpoint, back into the taxpayer's pocket, they are living in Hogwarts. They're in total denial. They don't understand how our appropriation system at a federal level works. So that's numero uno. $180,000 that we as a county applied for because we didn't want Cook County to have it. We didn't want Hennepin County to have it. We didn't want Ramsey County to have it. We wanted it because we wanted to turn around. And by the way, I hate meetings. I'm in 30 meetings a week, but I do sit in these meetings. I've sat in 3 of them. The Category 1 consulting folks that are actually putting this stuff together, I did a heavy sigh before I went into them, and Kim could probably vouch for that. I said, oh, here we go again, another meeting with a bunch of consultants. I can tell you this. I've sat in these meetings, the facilitators and the participants have put some good high-level ideas forward to help integrate, to Commissioner Borgensen's point, to help integrate some of these service providers in our community that are underutilized in this community. You know, these service providers have to have some sort of financial impetus. They need money to actually work these resources. These meetings and this consultation and this facilitation is helping to try to help them monetize it. You can't tell 2 people who are actually trying to tell youth, just go help them. Well, there's only 40 hours, there's a lot of hours in a week, but if they're working 40 or 50 hours in a week and they're not monetizing it, they're not going to be doing it very long. I've sat in 3 of these meetings and I've heard how they could potentially monetize it. It is not money down a rat hole. And I've seen money down a rat hole. I've seen it, I've lived it. 4 years on a revenue committee down in Lincoln, sitting on this board for 4 years, I've seen money down a rat hole. This ain't it. If it was, I would be screaming at the top of my lungs. What I'm saying is, we don't take that money or we don't apply for it, it's going somewhere else. Hennepin County will apply it. I'll guarantee they'll apply it in an effective manner to try to implement the type of facilitation that's needed to get these providers monetized. And by the way, final point, you think the county's just going to monetize them? What the legislature did last session is going to put us in a situation where we're not only not going to be monetizing things anymore, we're going to be cutting. Anybody watching, if there's anybody watching, and anybody in this room that thinks that's not going to happen, they're in denial too, and they're living in Hogwarts as well. So show me the money. That's the bottom line. And these facilitators are trying to help us do that. Now, thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's time. Thank you. For a third 2-minute round, Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. And, you know, I guess I would agree with some of that because we're going to be in a situation of maybe cutting some things that we don't need, like an empty building across the street, or repurposing it to serve some needs that we do need. I think the average daily population at the Douglas County Youth Center certainly has not gone down since we started this discussion 6 or 7 years ago. And I think, and I don't know there are folks here from the youth center, that we have an average daily population maybe in the 80s today. And we knew this going into building a building that had room for 40, 50 kids. We knew this. I told people this, other people told people this, and yet they went ahead and they built a building that was inadequate and it's empty. So if we want to be concerned about cutting back, the legislature is making us cut back, we might look at empty buildings that got promised to be adequate because these programs were going to reduce the population, that got promised financing from local foundations that didn't come through with the financing, and that have not had anything to do with helping children in our community. At great expense, nothing has happened from that expenditure and others that I'm interested in looking at to help children. I mean, if we're going to do something, let's help children. Facilitations, meetings, coordination, studies, yeah. Help the children. And an empty building is a testament to at least $27 million of not helping the children at your expense. So I'm more than willing to look at this in great detail, holistically. How much are we spending on what, and how does it help the kids?
It's time. Thank you. Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Final point. When this report does get put forward, to this point right now, let me step back. To this point right now, the only, and I think Commissioner Borgeson alluded to this just a little bit earlier. To this point right now, to the best of my knowledge, the only data that I've received in regard to intervention or early, adjudication and pre-intervention type of services that I've received are from the home program, from Boys Town, and from Radius. And those numbers are easy to get. That's it. I can't remember any others. To her point, there are metrics out there. They need to be provided. I need to see them. We all need to see them. That being said, if I only have verifiable statistics from 3 organizations and there are 10 others out there working on it, that is what these facilitation services are actually working on. Because guess what? It also takes resources and money to get not only people up here to actually sing that song, but to put all of that stuff together. This stuff doesn't magically appear through AI. It just doesn't. I'm anxious to see, and by the way, if I'm sitting through these meetings and I see a lack of movement, a lack of operation, a lack of strategic structure, I'll call it out. I haven't seen it yet, but I will. And then I think when these get done, I think we're going to have an opportunity to have 4 or 5 or 6 providers up in front of those microphones and saying, you want metrics? Here they are. We helped 1 kid out of 10 last month. And what this kid is doing is X, Y, and Z. Right now, I got the home program giving me information, and they can tell me that. I wasn't here when the Juvenile Justice Center was built. I'm not saying that I'm not culpable. I mean, I could have been, as a citizen, crying out against it or for it or whatever the case might be, but I wasn't. So I'm not going to speak to that. What I'm going to speak to is what we're actually doing right now. In regard to that type of scenario, we have an empty building downtown. We're going to try to implement in an appropriate fashion to help youth soon. But we're not running 2 facilities, to the best of my knowledge, because it's going to cost almost $7 million a year to do it. Guess what? Almost money down a rat hole. And money we don't have. We'll figure it out. I think finally, if we get an opportunity to grab some of those metrics, no matter how palpable or inconsequential they are, we're going to give these providers a little bit of an opportunity to say to DCYC, to others who work with them on a daily basis, we think we can move forward here. Right now, I don't know if they even know that. Look, we're not going to solve the world's problems. I can just tell you, I don't think subsection C on this consent agenda is a huge problem. They said, you want this money? We took it. Wasn't going back to the taxpayer, and now we're trying to do the best we possibly can to implement it in an appropriate fashion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. As a reminder, the motion before us is for the entire consent agenda. Is there any other comment on the consent agenda? Larry?
Larry Storer, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. Without your taking it off the consent agenda, we would not have heard these words We didn't hear them before when all this was taking place. And I just want to say that I do not contest that there's been a lot of good services provided and done by the people that are in the field. And yes, we do not hear enough about that. But by your own words today, I'm going to suggest that the state auditor take a look at auditing these funds. And the main reason is when you take grant money, whether it's federal money or somebody else's money, those people have a right to take that money back and to say you're not getting any more. What are you going to say to the taxpayers and to these people that'll be left out on the streets, these children that'll be left without services because the grant money has been refused? Yeah, they don't refuse it a lot because they want the power in the community, because they're a 501c3. If you can't fund it without the federal government or 501c3s, then don't do it. Where did my money get spent, and why is it not effective? And we didn't have a vote on the Juvenile Justice Center. My final comment before he shuts me up is, why did you not interrupt some of these people and shut them up? And I think you protest too late, Mr. Friend. I didn't hear you protest like this before, or none of you, because you rushed to pass it. You never discuss it like this in regular meetings unless somebody like Mr. Kavanaugh challenges you, like he and Maureen's dad used to do. And I was here for those too. And I've heard you say you didn't like them. I've overheard people say, we heard them on the microphone say they didn't like me. And I can hear most all of you, but I can't hear Mr. Rogers because he doesn't sit up at the microphone. Him and Marianne Borgeson are responsible for a lot of this over the past years, ever since the Juvenile Justice Center. So please, ask Mr. McDonald to take a look at where these funds were at and talk to the people and find out what good was done. If there was no good done and the dollars may be getting lost, then it needs to be stopped. There is one older gentleman like myself that accuses you of facing the contest of the word clawback with the federal government. What happens if that happens? Taxpayers will be on the bill for it, and they'll be very angry. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the consent agenda? If not, we'll vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next, we have Section 3, recognitions and proclamations. The first one being a recognition of the following county employee retirement. We have Todd Connolly, who worked for the Douglas County Communications Department for 18 years. I don't believe he is here today, but we thank him for his service to the public. I think we do have some commentary on the second one, so I'll take these separately. Can I get a motion for the first one? Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Please vote to approve.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. The next one, item B, is recognition of retirement for Ms. Beverly Chapman, who worked for Douglas County Youth Center for 27 years, and we do have some commentary.
Hi, I'm Rondi Woodard from the Douglas County Youth Detention Center. Bev was unable to attend today. She had some personal matters that superseded what was taking place today. She's been with us for 27 years. She's part of our family that we're gonna miss. You know, she was there loving the kids, treating the kids to the best of her ability. She is torn about leaving, but you know, she has to go on and do what she has to do with the, you know, taking care of the rest of her family. You know, she was part of the facility when our med department was the size of a broom closet, because it actually was the broom closet, and then it has grown into what it is today. Don't have a lot to say. She has some of her fellow co-workers here. Her nurse manager is in the back, and then one of the other nurses are here, and then, of course, the other nurses had to stay at the facility to work. Mark wants to say some things that he has prepared for her, so I'm going to allow him to do what he has been dying to do. Go ahead.
Thank you, Rondi. I'm Mark LaFleur, Douglas County Youth Center. Ever since I've been at the Youth Center, Bev has been a fabric of it. And she really has a genuine interest in young people. And she actually loves working with children, and it shows in her work and her dedication. And, you know, she said last month that it's time for her to move on. As Rondi said, she has some personal things going on with her family that she needed to address. And, you know, it's going to be tough going on without her. But, you know, she's really a stellar nurse and really has done an exceptional job.
Thank you, Mark and Rondi. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
I'll pass on our congratulations to Beverly for decades of public service. This is what I've been talking about. People who help children. And I can't imagine how many thousands of children Beverly assisted over the 37 years that she was with Douglas County, but it is thousands. And those are lives improved, lives changed because somebody sat down with a kid and helped them out on a problem that they were having. This is the best thing that we do for the children in our custody. And you folks do a great job. And I think it's money well spent directly impacting the lives of specific children. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're not sitting in facilitator meetings, you're not going to conferences, you're not writing reports. You're showing up for work every day, and I don't know what the average daily population is today. Could you tell me real quick?
We have 89 today.
90?
89.
89, okay. You're showing up every day and helping 89 individual Omaha kids, Douglas County kids. My hat's off to you. Thanks for doing this, and please tell Beverly we really, really appreciate her decades of service to us and the children of our community. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Borgerson?
I just want to add my congratulations to Beverly and thank Beverly for her service, as well as a couple of them sitting in the back there. It is one of the most important things that we do for our children, why they're with us, is to look at what their health issues are and how we might be able to set them on a good path as they leave the facility. And so what you do, I think sometimes you feel often goes unnoticed, but it doesn't. And we thank you and thank Beverly for her service to Douglas County. So thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. I'll take an enthusiastic motion and second to approve. Motion by Borgerson, second by Friends. Please vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. We'll now go into section 4, presentations. First, we have a presentation on the state of homelessness in Douglas County / Omaha, as requested by Commissioner Borgerson. So I will toss it to her to introduce.
Thank you. Basically, Tamara and I have gotten to know each other just from issues that I've contacted her about, and I have homelessness is one of the issues that I've worked on during my tenure here on the board. So there's a lot of, I'm going to say, noise out there about our homeless population, and I thought it was important for someone who's in the know, on the ground, doing the work, to give us what we are at, the facts of actually what we are dealing with our homeless population. And so, Tamara, thank you so much for being with us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I always like to talk about the work that I do, and every opportunity I have to talk to folks. I've talked to many different groups in Omaha and neighborhoods and businesses, and yes, I like to do that. So I'll go over a presentation with you about the current kind of scope of homelessness, and I'll talk about some things that I've been working on within the mayor's office and in the community, and then discuss some possible solutions. I also invited Jason, our executive director from Threshold COC, to talk for a few minutes about some stuff that they're doing and how we're collaborating. I know I've met a few of you. I haven't been able to meet all of you, but just a little tiny bit of background. My name is Tamara, as you already know. I've worked in homeless services here in Omaha for about a decade, everything from street outreach to permanent supportive housing. I've worked for the continuum of care as well. I'm a licensed independent mental health practitioner and a certified master social worker, so I've have lots of experience. So I'll move on to the next slide here, and I have some notes, so excuse me if I'm looking down at some of those. So our point in time count, just a brief overview what a point in time count is. Every community is mandated by HUD to complete one of these every year. In the last 10 days of January, the data from the point in time count goes to HUD, and then HUD then puts it into a report called the Annual Homelessness Assessment Report that goes to Congress to inform policies and funding. So it's a really important report for our community. The COC Threshold lead this, and so in 2023, that's the last available public data that we have. 2024 should be coming out soon, but 2023 is what we're gonna look at today. In 2023, there were 1,475 folks experiencing homelessness in Omaha, both in shelters, in transitional housing, and also unsheltered. And there's a breakdown. There's unsheltered 205 folks, and that's a 3-county area within our COC. So it looks at our metropolitan area, Sarpy County, Douglas County, and Pottawatomie County. And then 179 in transitional housing, and the remaining were in emergency shelter. We also look at the last permanent zip code. And within the report that they put together for 2023, it looked at unsheltered folks, so the 205, where their last residence was established. So we saw 36% had previously lived in Omaha, their last permanent address. 48 had a Council Bluffs zip code previously. 4% lived in another part of the Tri-County area, so outside of Council Bluffs or Omaha. And then 12.5% lived outside of that Tri-County area, so it could have been anywhere else in the country, in the state, or wherever. And also in 2023, we saw 92 veterans, 471 people who were experiencing chronic homelessness, so someone with a long length of homelessness and a disabling condition. 109 were fleeing domestic violence, 514 had a substance use disorder, and 574 had a mental illness excluding substance use disorder. 179 were under 18, and 340 were age 55 or older. So within the city of Omaha, over the last 6 months of 2023, we hired on a street outreach community liaison to work with me because there was a lot of work to do. So in the last 6 months, we started kind of tracking how many individual people we were connecting to, and we saw over 90 people we either connected or reconnected to some kind of housing or services. In 2024, so far, we've connected with 259 unique individuals. Assisted with housing 12 of those. We did 46 housing assessments, 39 referrals to community programs, including mental health, physical health, pantries, general assistance, and all kinds of stuff. We took 5 folks to shelter, and we did deliver 15 notices to vacate for areas that we're working through our encampment response strategy. With that, we have our cleanup processes, and since we started that in May, we have used our process to clean up 15 locations. Average cost about $1,400. The cost range from $400 to $9,000. And it kind of breaks down. There were 5 under 1,000, 8 between 1,000 and 5,000, and 2 over 5,000. Average 6 days from initial contractor assessment to cleanup. And the least amount of time is 1 day till cleanup, and the most was 24 days, and that was due to coordinating with a adjacent property owner. 49 tons removed and 110 staff hours of the contractors. So moving on to our encampment response strategy, I started building this in the middle of 2023, researching some other communities and talking to some other communities that had maybe something similar, or what kind of things that they were doing to respond to unsheltered homelessness and meet the needs of, you know, not only the businesses and neighborhoods, but also people experiencing homelessness. So in spring of 2023, we started taking reports through our reporting process. I've built a form with the Douglas County GIS folks, and it went into a dashboard as well. There's some screenshots through here. And in the spring of 2024, we started our assessment process that we built over the course of probably about 6 months altogether, consulting with different city departments and communities across the country and other federal and local experts to kind of help inform the process. And so we're just wrapping up our 6-month pilot period this month, and I'll share some of that data with you, but it's kind of preliminary. We're gonna hope to start kind of fresh January 1st. We'll use this to inform, to kind of finalize our encampment response strategy, and then move forward with, outside of a unofficial policy and procedure, January 1st. But this is kind of the stuff that we found through the pilot period. But no, like, the data isn't perfect because it was a pilot period, and there was a year that we didn't do assessments. We just collected reporting, and then there are lots of duplicates. There's some testing reports that we did. So all of that is included, but it gives a good idea of our process. So we have a few different, as you can see on the screen, if we have a report that's in process, it might mean the assessment has been completed or the assessment is being completed. The cleanup maybe is scheduled, or a notice is delivered, or we're just monitoring the location. If a report is closed, then it means that the cleanup had been completed by the city. The cleanup wasn't needed by the city, but it was completed, or it was a duplicate. And then the numbers on the other side there, how many reports we've gotten in the last few months. So September we had 15, August we had 30, July we had 26, and June we had 20. And this is what the dashboard for the report looks like. So this isn't a current dashboard. This is a screenshot I had, but this is kind of how the layout is. So it'll have different locations, the status, new reports, how many are in process, how many are closed, and what the report is. You know, what people answer within the city departments. Let me get to my notes page here. And so since we started our assessment piloting, we have completed 110 assessments. And the closed assessments over here on this side kind of gives a breakdown. There was 105 active encampments. 70, there was nothing found. 41, there was other activity. So we get reports of other activity, and what that usually is it's not an encampment, it's usually a gathering place or something where people are just congregating. Or a vacant encampment was 130 reports. this is intended to inform our level of response and prioritize. It's not intended to end homelessness. It's not intended to decrease homelessness. It's just intended for us to inform our response a little bit better and accurately, maybe with some evidence and data behind how we're responding to folks in our community. So the scoring matrix has 3 different categories of harm, is kind of what they're labeled as. So one section is labeled the impact to the larger community, includes lots of things like we look at crime rates or crime data that's available through OPD. We look at like calls to the mayor's hotline. We look at impact to businesses or the location of the encampment. For the second section, the impact to the population living within the encampment, we look at the vulnerabilities of those folks. Are there children? Are there people who are perceived to be elderly? People with disabling conditions or various other things? How many people are in the encampment? That kind of thing. And then the last section is the impact on the environment. So as you can imagine, it just kind of goes over what does it look like? Is there spoiled food, lots of bulky trash, lots of just waste? Or is it, pretty neat and clean? Is there evidence of fires that aren't safe, that kind of stuff? There's various different criteria. The score ranges from 0 to 103, so there's lots of different things that we score on. And then the levels are on the other side there. So obviously if it's not an encampment, we don't go through the assessment, so there's no score. Level 1 is not scored either because it's a vacant encampment is what we assess that as. Level 2 is a score of 20 and lower. Level 3 is between 21 and 35, and level 4 is 36 or higher. And then there's also some immediate notices to vacate for unsafe locations. So if folks are maybe camping in a street or somewhere where cars are driving, an alley or something where cars are actively driving, if someone is camping in a sewer or a rainwater drain or something like that. Floodways, NRD had requested that we included floodways within that, so we did. And of the encampments that we had assessed or that we had started since this spring, 125 of those were level 1, so not an encampment, didn't complete a full assessment. Vacant, or not an encampment, but a vacant encampment, didn't complete a full assessment. Level 2, there were 78 level 2s, 18 level 3s, and 1 level 4, 64 not an encampment, and 1 unsafe location. And then I just broke down kind of the average score. So community impact, maximum 34, average 5.26 is what we saw. Environmental impact, the maximum was 22 and the average was 6.37. And then the individual impact, 4.91, and the maximum was 47. So the total max, like I said, 103, and the average was 16.58 across the board. And as you can see, the environmental impact was a higher scoring area. And this is what our assessment dashboard kind of looks like. This isn't a current, but this is the most recent kind of screenshot I had. So this is what it looks like. And then this is a last dashboard that we're building, and this will look a little bit differently, but this is the closed reports basically. So we'll have it looking a little differently and maybe some other things listed, but it'll tell us, of our closed encampments, what did that look like? How many were duplicate? How many did the city clean up? How many did private property owners clean up? That kind of thing. So, getting into solutions, I wanted to. Did anybody have any questions before I talk about a few things? Okay. So, getting into solutions, I wanted to talk about a couple of different reports that I read that were one of them, quite old, that was done here in Omaha from 1986. So, we've been studying homelessness for at least 40 years. And there was another one done in 2007 by the local continuum of care, looking at homelessness, same thing, what's causing it, what can we do? Overall, from both of those reports, they came to the conclusion, basically the same three reasons, income, lower income folks, economic stability of people, lack of community supports, and lack of housing, right? Lack of housing affordability, housing availability. And again, those were kind of the suggestions that came out of those reports. So nothing too different than what we know now. And the report from 1986, specifically, I remember 2007 may have mentioned it, but 1986 did really emphasize the need for long-term solutions and not short-term knee-jerk reactions. So we're still seeing that today. Without housing, we aren't going to probably see an end in sight. I don't know if anyone had read a recent New York Times article about the rental market in the country, but Omaha was ranked the 7th worst rental market in America. And what we do know in communities that have a high increase in unsheltered homelessness is that those communities also had seen very tight and hard to reach housing markets for most folks. And that article also stated that there are about 13 households that are in line for one rental unit available in Omaha. So we need affordable housing, those kinds of solutions. There's also other solutions that could be revolved around community support, supportive housing. We know that those things work. We know that people that are in supportive housing and have community supports around them, we know that they visit the emergency room less. We know that they are in jail less often. And we know that the cost is cheaper. The cost is less burdensome on the taxpayer, than some of these other communities, things like jail, emergency rooms, and that kind of stuff. But I can answer questions. I was just looking to make sure I have lots of data if anyone wants anything, but I can wrap it up and answer questions now. I don't want to take too much time.
Very briefly, though, did you say that there's also a second speaker
yes.
to your presentation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jason.
Can we wrap that piece up and then we'll do questions?
Yes, perfect.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Jason Feldhaus. I'm the Executive Director at Threshold COC, which is a continuum of care for the homeless for Douglas, Sarpy, and Pottawatomie County. We are formerly known as Match. You may be more familiar with that name. We went through a rebranding in late 2023, early 2024. One of the solutions that Tamara, and if you don't mind, I'll be looking at my phone just for some notes. But one of the solutions Tamara was talking about was we just conducted a 12-month, starting in July of 2023, strategic plan and gaps analysis to really look at our system. Coming out of COVID, what we started to identify is there has been some trends that have changed kind of the face of homelessness that we're seeing in our community. Fixed income, more senior population is higher risk of homelessness due to inflationary costs, rising costs of housing, and those types of costs that are outpacing their saved income. Families are at risk, and our system itself has quite a few shelter beds set up for single individual men and some for women, but we are lacking some of those beds for housing, emergency shelter for families. So we really felt it was a good chance for us to take a kind of look at what we're starting to see as a trend. We've also seen our chronic homelessness go from about 32% up to about 40%. So individuals that we are serving are coming with more needs, higher needs, and are staying longer in our homeless services. So Category 1 also did our strategic planning. It lasted 12 months. We had a steering group of about 30 providers in the community that met on a monthly basis and had focus group conversations. We sent out over 250 surveys, received back about 110, and then did additional focus groups with lived experience and targeted groups to get a full understanding of the process. We looked at data sources that included both our HMIS system. So HMIS stands for Homeless Management Information System that's provided by the federal government. It's required by all HUD-funded agencies to put data into that system. So we use that system. We looked at the ERAP program that's provided through federal assistance for COVID. Match or threshold is the City of Omaha subcontractor for that rental assistance. So we had records of about 15,000 applications that we serviced through the ERAP program. And we looked at multiple other plans, some that Tamara already kind of alluded to you. What we found was that we came up with 3 levels. We have societal level analysis, systems level, and service level. You know, the societal level is cost of living, employment, wages, public perception. We are trying to address the public perception. We're working with some local philanthropic community and a national campaign to look at how we can educate our general public around the needs, the changing needs of our homeless system, and the efforts that we're making at a local level to address those changing needs. At a systems level, we have really focused in our strategies to bring in adapted strategies that will look at these new changing populations, system coordination, removal of barriers, and efficiency across all of our referral systems and alignment with those services. One of those, and I think Commissioner Corrections talked about earlier, we've actually been in pretty good conversations with Corrections and Region 6 about a dual, kind of a tri-effort with the homeless system, Corrections, and Region 6 to make sure that individuals that are coming out of Corrections have a place to go, are housed, and then have immediate services access to them. Early stages, obviously, in those conversations, but that's part of that systems change we're looking at. And then the service level gaps. So we're really also going to go in and look at our performance levels, build common metrics, measure to those common metrics, which are outside. HUD already has certain requirements that we have to meet for most of our federal funding that comes into the community, but we're going to add some additional metrics in there to see that we're moving the needle in certain areas towards much improved outcomes. Most of this information, we can send it to you. It's on a PDF. It has multiple links to it. You'll have access to the gaps analysis, the community strategic plan. There's an animation on there, and any other material that you guys would request, we would be more than happy to provide for you. We are right now in the, we're providing out the information, disseminating the plan. Starting January of 2025, there'll be full implementation with 5 task force that we're creating to take on one of each of our 5 areas of interest that I discussed earlier. So with that, I don't have anything more, fairly informal presentation, but happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you both. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Boyle.
Yep. Just on a basic level, as a citizen.
Just one second. We'll go to Commissioner Boyle first.
So if there's a citizen who has a concern or notices an encampment, how does that get reported? What are the steps taken to follow up on something like that?
Yeah, so within the city, the best way to report is probably the mayor's hotline. They fill out my reporting form and get that to my office, and we can follow up with an encampment situation, or even if it's just someone they're not quite sure what's going on, we can follow up and assess the location. We have referral processes for several different community partners, and we kind of start with the continuum of care with threshold for our referrals. We'll look and make sure that, if we do identify a person, if they're already connected to services, we'll try to get in contact with their case manager or whoever it is. If they're not, then we refer on to Threshold's street outreach, community street outreach program, and they kind of take it from there.
And I'm sure most of us have encountered folks who seem to be chronically homeless, and it's not that they are not offered services, but what is out there, or what can be done for that particular population just to help those folks?
Yeah, chronic homelessness is, it's a little bit tougher to get people into housing, that are chronically homeless, and sometimes it's the length of homeless, right? Somebody who is homeless for a year or more within the 3-year time frame, or consecutively, but also the disabling condition. But the disabling condition can be anything, from just a physical disability to a mental disability to a chronic illness, different things. So it kind of depends on what their needs are individually, as to like how we can most appropriately help them, or what kind of resources are available to them. It's really, really individualized on kind of a housing plan for folks.
I see. So it's isolating what that individual is, like what's the driving factor for their homelessness, and figuring out what services they need.
Yeah, well, just kind of what their needs are in housing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll go to Zoom quick just because somebody was eager to speak, but I didn't quite catch them. Who was that on Zoom?
Yes, my name is Ronnie James. I represent the Concord Square Homeowners Association, located at 21st and Franklin and the area nearby Sienna Francis House in that vicinity. We've made several reports via the mayor's hotline. We call the Omaha Police Department on a consistent basis in regards to the homeless concerns in our area. Those concerns are crime, where they're breaking into cars. We have a park called Logan Fontenelle Park, which is in the center of our subdivision, where we do have encampments from time to time. The neighbors continuously clean them up. When we do call the police a lot, and when they respond to things, they say that their hands are tied. There's nothing that they could do. Obviously, if they're in the park during park hours, when they're kids from the local schools that are trying to play in the park, and you got an adult that's on the swing set or on the slides, the kids can't even use the slides. What are we to do about that, and how is that being corrected, or what are we doing to correct those particular deals? As far as what can we do to help that?
Well, I think it's a complex issue, right? These are folks that are community members as well, right? And deserve, to be treated like community members just as much as anyone who is in housing or, not. They're still part of the community. They're constituents to, elected officials and everything. But also there's homeowners that are constituents. And it's really trying to find a balance, and knowing, like, not everyone's going to be 100% happy, but trying to find a balance to not only just get rid of the face of homelessness, but end homelessness. So, trying to end someone's homelessness, it looks a little bit differently than, just managing homelessness throughout the city.
And I do understand that they're homeless and they have the same rights as one of the citizens, but I would need someone to act more like that. Like when I got a 5-year-old kid that wants to go on a slide, but he can't get on the slide because there's a naked guy laying on the slide, or he won't get off the swing because the other guy, a grown adult saying like, sorry, I was here first. How do we deal with that type of situation? I guess is who more do I call in a situation like that?
I mean,
It
if you
seems
feel,
like,
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just
Go
going
ahead,
to
go
say,
ahead.
I mean, I can't speak to crime. I'm not a law enforcement. I don't enforce laws. I can look at crime data and inform our processes with that, but I don't respond to crime. I mean, I think using your gut instinct if there's something dangerous going on to involve law enforcement, but I mean, I don't really have a perfect 100% solution for something like that.
Okay. And,
Sorry.
I understand what you guys are saying, but I guess what we're looking for is there's been years and years of study, but there's been more and more encampments and everything like that. We're now to the point where the Omaha Police Department is saying, there's nothing they can do about it. They just kind of like leave them there. I mean, it's going on to the neighbors ourselves that we're in the point of having to clean it up. And we realize, like I said, if we let them stay in the park per se, who is responsible for really cleaning that up if they're not cleaning up after themselves? I mean, those are the things that we're trying to figure out to get answers to. If we're going to live together and try to work it out where we're all both getting along in the same society, we got to have a way or a system to where we can make that actually happen. Like as a homeowner, I'm responsible for cleaning up my own yard, mowing my own lawn, and keeping my sidewalk clear. But the homeless, when they come to our particular park, they'll trash it and leave it there just like it's, like it's nothing, and then walk away, and then we'll call the city, and the city was like, okay, well, at the one time, we already cleaned that up. There's nothing we can do about it. Or what are we, I just going to try to figure out what are you working on to try to resolve that particular problem? Who is going to be responsible for letting us live together, in a society where everybody could get along?
And I do actually have to wrap up this segment of the speaker's turn, but do you want to give information for follow-up dialogue?
Yeah, I just want to say, Ronnie, I don't know if we can get you my contact information, but reach out to me directly and we can have a conversation. I'm more than happy to talk about the specific location and situation for you. And that's kind of what we're trying to craft a little bit better and a little more meaningfully with our encampment response strategy, so that we have all of our city departments and community partners working together collaboratively, and so that there aren't so many holes or unknown answers for you. So that's kind of what we're hoping to come out of this process, that unified approach.
Your contact information, Tamara?
Yeah, so you can email me at tamara.dwyer@cityofomaha.org, or you can call my phone and leave a message at 402-444-5138.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to go to Commissioner Kavanaugh, then I'll come back to the hands on Zoom. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you. And thanks for this information. If you could get us a hard copy of it or something,
Yeah.
that would be helpful. Just a couple of quick questions. I think you referenced it in here, but it was not quite clear to me anyhow. The estimated homeless population today in the city of Omaha is what?
So 2023 point in time count
I'm sorry, could you speak up?
2023's point in time count was 1,475 people in the 3-county area. That is including folks in emergency shelter, transitional housing, and unsheltered.
1,475 in the Tri-County area?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Douglas, Sarpy, Potawatomi?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there was a slide in here that I saw, and I'm sure this wasn't comprehensive, and it showed a number of 259 people homeless, or that you had surveyed, and 12 had been housed. Do you recall that particular slide?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what's the 259 number?
So the 259 is the number of just unique individuals that we had made contact with through our reporting process. So it didn't always have to be where we did find an encampment there, but we did make contact with folks that were in the area.
Okay. And of that 259, 12 were housed, is that
Yeah,
correct?
yep. We assisted 12 individuals get into housing, yeah.
And maybe Mr. McCoy can help us on this last one. So, last week, I was over at Sienna Francis House. They're right next door to our detox unit. We're, collaborating with them. They have capacity. I know there's St. Stephen's in my old neighborhood in South Omaha, and I know that they house people with homeless issues. Our general assistance has a rental assistance program that you and I worked on during COVID.
Yep.
And we try to provide general assistance. And it troubles me because every year we kind of turn back general assistance dollars to the budget here because of qualification difficulties. My question is, do you coordinate with these providers like Sienna Francis House and Stevens Center on getting a roof over people's heads?
Yeah, so our role in general is to be the collaborative applicant for the federal government, but also be the collaborative backbone for all of those providers. So we meet with the shelters in particular on the first week of the month to start looking at shelter utilization, any changes that we see, ongoing services and practices, efficiency in getting people in the housing, those types of things. Align those federal resources directly with those providers. We also receive a large philanthropic grant from several of the foundations here locally, where we provide about $1.7 million for diversionary efforts. So that's the idea that if someone shows up to the shelters, we're trying to find them a quick housing option with little or minimal touch and low financial connection. We're about 80%. Our providers do an excellent job. All those providers you mentioned and many of the others, at about 80% of the individuals that come in, 8 out of 10, we're able to divert and get into housing.
To those specific
for those individuals that are showing up, yes. So we do work constantly on that. I think, we definitely have our challenges, and the more expanse the needs are, like I think Mr. James also was alluding to, just the complexity of some of those, our resources can't stretch far enough right now to find a
So
shared
the general assistance resources that we set aside specifically for rental assistance, among other things, are those adequate? Well, we can come back to it.
Go ahead and take a second turn, Commissioner Cavanaugh.
Are you able to access those adequately to help supplement your efforts?
I will say general assistance, we have had more recently a few more conversations with them. I think, I'm going to say this, Commissioner, I think we used the COVID resources that were just so flexible and so fast for a while. Our long-term strategy and planning now has to go back to these types of resources. We are in conversations to be more efficient in that area. I will say that our organization gave out $85 million in rental assistance over those 2 years with the COVID funds.
You did.
Yeah. So we kind of just used what was in our back pocket. I think you're alluding to what we need to do in the future.
Okay. And if we can help facilitate that, with the city, with you, whoever, I think, winter is coming, and so we're very sensitive.
I think we're on a good approach. I think I'd like the opportunity to maybe report back to you how that goes.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, I would say on a whole, like the COC and within my role and my street outreach liaison, we work with Douglas County General Assistance on a regular basis. They're wonderful to work with and try to get people, into their voucher program, and other, housing providers, Sienna Francis, Heartland Family Service together. All of them are so helpful, and the housing authorities. And one of the big problems that we see that was kind of reflected in that recent article is that we will have people that have vouchers for many months and can't find a unit for those vouchers.
If you could give me that Tri-County homeless number again. I wrote it down here. I can't.
Yeah, at 1475.
Okay. Now, I think you came on almost 2 years ago right now, didn't you?
Pretty close to 2 years ago, yeah.
I know because we dealt with this COVID impact on housing, that it was spiking up. But do you have any feel for when you came on, the number was X, and now we're at 1475?
Yeah, I can send with my presentation. I can send a report. There's a link in there for the Institute for Community Alliances that has ongoing data from Threshold and the continuum of care about like trends in population, and I can send that to you specifically, but also there's a link in that presentation that'll bring you to that website that can show you that.
So you're trained as a psychologist, right?
Well, I'm a clinical social worker.
And you have a degree from Wesleyan in psychology?
I have a degree in Wesleyan for social work, and I have a degree from UNO in social work.
Okay. And you heard our corrections report where we have 19% of 1,000 people, 175, 90
Yeah.
people, something like that,
Mhm.
who report themselves as homeless. It's probably more than that, but
Right,
anyhow.
right.
That's a subset of this 1475.
It could be, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so these are people who come in contact with our criminal justice system. We know, just being, residents of this community, that there's a homeless encampment at Saddle Creek and Cummings Street,
Mhm.
almost permanently. We know that there are homeless encampments under the bridges out on the bike trail, like at 78th and Cass, and they're almost permanently, because we get emails from folks, joggers, residents, whatever, neighborhoods, all the time. And we know that these have been reported to public safety, whether it's Douglas County Public Safety, the City of Omaha, whoever. Do you have an interaction with those people? Because these reports come to us all the time.
Yeah,
We see them all the time.
Do you mean the people who are reporting or the people experiencing homelessness?
Well, I mean, we see them every day.
Yeah, I mean, we go out every day and visit camp locations. I mean, there's a lot of situations where it's multi-layered in what is actually going on. It's more than just homelessness in some areas. And then there's some, situations where it is just people who have nowhere to go and they are, camping in a place trying to stay out of sight because they don't, want to get in trouble or anything. But
That's time.
Do I have one more?
Yeah, 2-minute, third round.
So, as far as that goes, my response, and I'm sure that the other commissioners share this, is can't we get somebody to go today and help those people at Saddle Creek and Cummings, get a roof over their head tonight, because it's going to be frosty tonight? I mean, does that capacity exist?
yeah, so people do that. I think Saddle Creek and Cummings probably the most visited by service providers of all of our camps currently.
If I was doing this today, who would I call?
You could call the Threshold Street Outreach, their street outreach line, and let them
Do you
know.
have a number for them?
Yep, yeah, we can share the flyer for that. I don't have the number right on me. Do you have that number, Jason? Oh, here we go. So the message number for their street outreach team is 402-957-1747. I do want to make it clear, though, when we have street outreach and service providers responding to homelessness, these are not emergency responders. If there's an emergency happening, we call emergency professionals. So,
Yeah, we don't want to get these people arrested. We want to get them housed.
Right, exactly. And, we know that arresting people, let's see, in Denver alone, one of their reports estimated that their city spent about $3 million annually just arresting and incarcerating people experiencing homelessness, And we know from different reports, specifically from the Economic Roundtable, said that local governments can save about $20,000 per person per year by funding supportive housing. And those cost reductions come from, emergency services, criminal justice, and healthcare, and that kind of stuff.
10 seconds.
Yes, thank you.
Good. You want to? All right. That's actually.
Commissioners, is it okay if I address that?
That's his
Yeah,
third
yeah,
round.
go ahead. I mean, we've
Okay.
got limited time, but go ahead real quick.
You actually, that's
Are
your
we done?
that's your third
Okay.
round. Yeah.
We're out of
Sorry.
time.
Other questions or comments from commissioners or public? I do see 2 hands on Zoom. Yep, that's right. Let me get Stacy on Zoom, and then we'll go back to the chamber. Stacy, are you there?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. So my name is Stacy Knable. I've lived in Omaha since 2008. I've been running on the Keystone Trail since that time, and I run between Blondo Street and Center Street. Unfortunately, over the past 4 to 5 years, I've experienced numerous safety concerns along the trail, And specifically, since 2019, I've had personal numerous drug dealings that are still happening. One day I witnessed a woman laying near Dodge Street overpass behind McDonald's with her pants down to her ankles. There was a fire burning on the trail near Cass and 78th by the Genesis Health Club. And in June of this year, there was a man that had taken off his belt, was waving it in the air, aggressively yelling, and then started running towards me, yelling while I was running. So I have serious safety concerns with the homeless situations that are occurring, and specifically under 78th and Cass and underneath Pacific Street, just because of all of the situations I have seen. I have called the mayor's hotline, I've submitted reports, and as I think one of the mayors or one of the commissioners spoke earlier, those situations are still occurring. They don't seem to be resolved. So my question is, when these reports are made, how soon is it going to be until these situations are cleared, specifically under 78th and Cass and under Pacific Street? Because I've called, I've reported, and my personal safety is at risk, and that's very concerning. I would say I'm also boots on the ground because I see this 5 times a week at least. I'm on the Keystone Trail 5 to 6 days a week, usually between 5:30 a.m. and 8 a.m. So it's still a little bit dark, and I've definitely encountered many serious situations that I'd like to understand how these are going to be addressed in the future.
Hi, again, just want to reiterate, I'm not a law enforcement officer. When I don't respond to crimes and all of that, homelessness in itself is not a crime, and that's kind of what we aim to address. For situations like the response, it kind of depends on the level that they're scored at now with our encampment response process. I do know 78th and Cass. I think I visited that location the entirety of my decade working in homeless services. That's been an area that has always had folks kind of around since I've worked here in Omaha in homeless services. I'm sorry for the experiences that you have had. I mean, I don't know how to really answer the question around the crimes being committed, like I said, because that would be better addressed with OPD. But in general, for the response, it would depend on the level of response and also how quickly we can get people into housing or into shelter. You know, we have limited shelter beds. I've been hearing more and more lately that we have no availability of shelter beds, and that's a real concern. You know, we haven't even gotten to the cold months yet, and not having any shelter beds is a huge concern. So, I mean, how quickly we can actually end somebody's homelessness rather than just continuing to move them around the city is kind of dependent on how much longer we're going to all do with this. We don't want people on the streets. We know that communities are much safer when everyone is inside, and that's what we want to do.
Yeah, and I think from a threshold perspective and the CSC perspective, I think it's good to know a little bit of the numbers as well. So in 2019, the pit count found 49 people who were unsheltered on the street. By 2023, we're up to 205. Our newest report will be coming out. We're still working with HUD, and we'll get that out. But I'll tell you as well that those numbers have increased in 2024. So we're seeing just a trend where unsheltered homelessness continues to increase, and that's another reason why I kind of spoke earlier about our strategies right now as a community just need adaptation to be adapted towards some of these situations. We're lacking some of the answer. As far as
I got to cut you off there. Sorry, Jason.
Oh, sure.
Time's up. I got to go to Mr. Rich Hudson on Zoom.
Yes, thank you. Hey, I appreciate the opportunity to jump on here and be able to share. I've had the pleasure of working with Tamara via emails and correspondence with Sheriff Hansen. As a business owner for the last 40 years down in the Millard area, approximately 134th and Q Street, we've had a continual problem with homelessness. Recently, we've had the thing I want to address is we've had the homeless encampment cleared out recently, And they did a wonderful job of getting down there, getting that all cleared out. But within a matter of less than a week, it was right back to those persons were coming in. Family members were bringing in couches, ladders, all types of tents, and other living arrangements that they have built back up underneath the bridge. Um, so, are we spending our money wisely and not having any way to prevent them from coming back in? So, we're clearing it out, but they're just coming right back in and building their housing. I have a great deal of empathy and compassion for this problem. As a father who has dealt with addictions and mental health, I have experienced the homeless situation and have gone and sought out a lot of help for that. But the one thing I know is if that I have found to be true is the more that we make it difficult for that situation, the more a person becomes uncomfortable, and the more often they're uncomfortable, uh, it can promote change, and that change can be, and in my experience, it did change from the uncomfortable situation, and it changed to seeking out programs to seek sobriety, seek mental health help, and now living a functioning life here in society. So, are we spending our money wisely, and what are we doing to protect them from coming back underneath the bridges? Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. I mean, in my opinion, we could be spending our money wiser, absolutely. I mean, the only way to prevent and end this from happening is to increase our housing availability for folks. That's the only way we're going to end that, is to have the housing available for people to be in. Not everyone that experiences homelessness, has mental health or addiction, but homelessness does make those things worse and make it harder for people. And we do recognize that, but at the end of the day, if they don't have somewhere to go, then this is going to happen continuously. And then, supportive services to keep them in their housing, and those prevention efforts is there. I think I answered all of that.
Is there ways to, like my understanding for the Millard and the 134th and Q Street Bridge, there was supposed to have been no trespassing signs. So if they did return to those areas, they could be utilize the law enforcement to come down and do some arrest and bring them back out and re-clean up those areas.
I mean,
that didn't seem to be done.
Yeah, I don't think that the NRD was interested in posting any signs like that. I think that I know the area you're talking about, and I know the city isn't interested in posting those kinds of signs. I think a sign being up isn't going to stop that from happening. It's just going to, allow us to utilize our criminal justice system for responding to homelessness more often than not, and just being leery of, again, spending money wisely, when we're responding to this. I also do want to be clear that, we know that homelessness, especially unsheltered homelessness, is life or death for people. And we see people die every year because of their unsheltered homelessness. And I mean, we want to get everyone into housing and the support that they need in order to gain that stability.
Thank you. I do have to move to the next person. I will go to Miss Linda on Zoom.
Hi, this is Linda Toomey from Sienna Francis House. I hope you can hear me. I am just responding to comments about shelter availability because I want people to know that there is shelter availability in the community. Last night we had 80 empty beds in our men's shelter and several empty beds in our women's shelter. So I do think our community is seeing a crisis for the first time in terms of there's more people experiencing homelessness daily than there are shelter beds. But I want to assure everyone that there are shelter beds available. The shelter system is working on strategies to accommodate people in the winter and overflow. So I highly encourage people to continue to be referred to shelters, and shelters continue to problem solve to find the best opportunities for the needs that people have today for safe, warm accommodations to being homeless every day.
Thanks, Linda. I want to apologize if I misinterpreted anything. Just we had been working with outreach and some other providers over the weekend and heard that there was folks that were turned away because there was no bed availability. I know these things change daily. I did reach out to Open Door Mission and their men's side that they were full. They were using overflow. But that's kind of the side that we had heard, so.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from the chamber? Larry?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. Thanks again, Mr. Kavanaugh, for opening it. And I'd like to defend these people here. I believe that a lot of the questions that are being asked to them need to be asked of the city administration and maybe the county. I'm not saying that the programs aren't successful, but obviously there's too much of it. And I'm from that area, Jim, that you mentioned. I drive it numerous times a day, observing it. I live at just north of the blighted area. 50th Avenue is the north boundary. But from the Walnut Creek District, which is about 49th in Hamilton, to about 48th in Hamilton, between Hamilton and Cumming, is an extremely bad area. It gets no attention. There are street vendors that unload their cars with stuff to sell on the corner. Convenient Mart here, Mega Saver there. Oh, street vendors all, and food trucks. You should drive that area, that whole area, from 48th to about 42nd, known for, not quite 42nd, the top of the hill by the Walnut Hill School, and around between Cumming and Hamilton, and take a look. There's a apartment building that I don't know was abandoned or something. The homeless people started breaking into it and destroying it. Then people started dumping all their trash. Well, finally, after quite a few months, the city or somebody saw that the pile was too big, so they went out and cleaned it up and took their sign away. But if you look at various houses in that, various houses have been broken into, and you'll see roofs that are being torn apart, windows broken out, and there's caution signs on them, but nothing ever happens. The north side of Saddle Creek, or Northwest Radio Highway, that was really bad. There was even a house that finally burned down. Drive that area right behind where the Islamic Center is and the telephone company building, and you'll see small houses that people are actually maybe starting to abandon them because they've been broken into next door, getting to be unlivable. Up the hill across Northwest Radio Highway, you'll see some of the same things. And then north of Hamilton and Northwest Radio, a little bit of that, but not so bad as between Cumming and Hamilton. It's starting to go up Saddle Creek Drive now. But part of this, I think, is the redevelopment plans apparently have targeted this area to let it run down so that they can redevelop it. I'm convinced of that. I've been listening to this stuff, I don't know for how many years now. And yeah, I may not be correct, but it's to their advantage and to the developers, the realtors, the construction companies, who sometimes they're all three mixed in one, to see that areas get run down so they can buy it at the lowest value, etc. I won't go into all that, but I would like to propose something that put a little humor into this. There are some solutions. I was born in '43, and I remember many stories and movies about the Depression years. My father was a railroader. They lived in a boxcar on the rail tracks. They He had a job that he had to move along with the gang. I see you're shutting me off early, but not other people.
It's not early.
Oh, anyway.
Sorry, it's been 4 minutes.
And a lot of people did. I also remember, because I bought a new camera and I shot sequential pictures of you guys blowing up downtown Omaha. What a wonderful place that would have been now.
Thank you, Larry.
We had the rail tracks, we had the buildings. Oh, now we got these big buses.
Thank you, Larry.
Wait a minute, Jim?
Larry, that's time. That's time, Larry. I'm not cutting you off. That's actually been more than 4 minutes. Thank you, Larry. Thank you. All right. Other comments in the chamber from public or commissioners? Go ahead.
Hello. My name is Melissa Neuenfeld. I live at 540 North 77th Circle in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm a registered nurse. I am here today to provide testimony to support the case of a human-centered, compassionate, evidence-based approach to the problem of homelessness in our community. I have been providing nursing care for our unsheltered neighbors as a member of the Threshold Street Outreach Team since 2017. I am currently serving as Chief Operating Officer of Heal Omaha. Founded in 2022, Heal Omaha is a 501c3 nonprofit staffed and administered entirely by volunteer nurses, advanced practitioners, and physicians. We bring primary health care to our unsheltered neighbors. We make rounds at least weekly on the street, going to the alleyways, under the bridges, and to the encampments where our patients reside. We provide medical evaluations, nursing case management, medications, medical supplies, and health evaluations to those we serve. Street medicine is a unique method of healthcare delivery. Whereas hospital and medical clinic culture has for years been striving to become patient-centered, street medicine is patient-led. We meet patients literally where they are and partner with our patients to achieve their goals. It never stops being remarkable to me to witness the transformation over just a matter of few weeks with a new patient. People who've been abandoned and marginalized, who've been felt worthless and hopeless, engage with people who have genuine, radical, non-transactional concern for their well-being. More than once, we've served patients who had given up on the possibility of housing, and over time, they start working on their goals again. They reach out to estranged loved ones. Some have even gone to substance use treatment. Some of our patients will not survive their experience of homelessness, but losing patients is not a failure if they died feeling as though they mattered to someone and someone cared. We can, at the very least, provide that. I have come to understand over these years that the most transformative intervention for our patients to impact the disparity in mental and physical health associated with homelessness is housing. Lack of safe, affordable, permanent housing is a malignancy which robs people of years of their life. Lack of safe, stable, permanent housing, people who experience chronic homelessness have a life expectancy of decades fewer than their stably housed neighbors. Housing is healthcare. For this reason, Heal Omaha works in close partnership with the Threshold Outreach Team and the individual street outreach workers who shine a light on the path to housing. One of our patients who has taken that path is now requesting to become a volunteer. Heal Omaha consists of volunteers from all of the largest healthcare organizations in town. We are building bridges between the historic silos of healthcare and homeless service. Solving the injustice of homelessness as a community requires continued cross-sectional collaboration with government, the justice system, religious institutions, emergency medical services, public housing, the voices of those with lived and direct experience, and ultimately the entire community. Barriers to expanding this collaborative effort include myths, stereotypes, fears, scapegoating, and blame placing. It's an exciting time to be a part of the homeless service system in this community. We have a human-centered, evidence-based, hope-fueled, cross-sector, collaborative community plan building the necessary bridges and tackling the barriers to success. We have everything we need in our community right now to achieve the goal of making homelessness a rare, brief, and non-recurring situation. Homelessness is a solvable problem in our community. It's really just a matter of time before all of the right pieces in place. I urge you as leaders in our community to support this work towards housing justice. Thank you for your attention to this issue.
Thank you, appreciate that. We'll go to Commissioner Kavanaugh for a third 2-minute round.
Thank you, and thanks for this. I couldn't agree more. I propose long-term residential mental health care for Douglas County residents for years now. We have the opportunity now with ARPA funds from the federal government and our campus on 42nd Street to provide long-term residential care for people with probably permanent mental health problems not provided anywhere in our community. I am 100% with you in terms of if these people don't have a place to live, it will affect their lives or their ability to live. So look at the record. What we are engaged in here is a discussion on whether or not we will provide long-term residential mental health services to mentally ill people who are not probably going to get better in Douglas County. Exactly what you're talking about. That's on the table now. We should do that now. We have the money to do it now. We have the facility to do it now. And it's not provided anywhere in the community for people with permanent disabilities. Mr. McCoy, we were interrupted. I don't know if you wanted to add anything finally to this discussion, but we got about a minute.
Mr. Feldhaus?
Well, I don't remember where exactly I was, but I think one thing, first off to the citizens, please reach out. We understand this is a tough situation for all those that are experiencing homelessness, obviously the citizens and the providers. One thing I will say is we're touching on that trend. We also are, we've seen that increase of unsheltered homelessness go up. We're also on the backside of some of those funding supports that we had at one point in time for street outreach are now starting to sunset from the federal government. So from a strategic point of view, we're starting to head into a really complicated place, and I think it's good that leadership knows that and the community understands that, we are going to lose probably some individuals on the street. Our reaction time will be a little slower, and in addition, we're seeing an increase at the same time.
Thanks for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chamber?
Tim Owens, Douglas County Sheriff's Office. I'm the lieutenant of the Community Action Team. We respond to homeless complaints for the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Just some of the concerns that I heard today that I just kind of want to reiterate, that if somebody sees something unsafe in their community, call 911, just because if it's a homelessness or any other person in our community. Call your local law enforcement professional. I work with Tamara on the City of Omaha's committee. I contact her regularly. So if there is a complaint, we'll go out and investigate it. If there's any crimes that are being committed, if not, we'll refer it to Tamara. We've done that regularly, and we have no problem to doing that. But with some of the stuff that was being said, if they see a crime that's going on, make sure you contact your law enforcement professional. I don't want Tamara to go out into an unsafe environment. We could check that out and then make those referrals. So I just wanted to point that out to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to?
Thank you, Deputy Owens. I did want to also mention really quick that, like Deputy Owens had mentioned, he is representing the Douglas County Sheriff's Office on the mayor's task force to prevent and end homelessness, along with folks from various city departments and community partners, and all of those individuals had a hand in crafting our encampment response strategy, right? And we have the commitment from that task force to help pilot this and get it ongoing and participating in that effort as believing in that unified collaborative response.
Thank you. We're going to go to Commissioner Borgerson.
I just want to say, wow, the response for this is amazing, and thank you all for being here and all of your comments. Most of the time we know that this is, quote, a city issue. Unincorporated Douglas County may not see as big of an issue, but in unincorporated Douglas County, we do have issues of homelessness. And so I thought it was important for, again, you, Tamara, as the expert, to talk to us about what we are actually seeing and what the response is. a couple of things. Back when it was Match and I was on that board, we really ratcheted up our permanent supportive housing. Do we still have that big number of permanent supportive housing units, or obviously we're seeing that we could potentially use more? Where are we with that?
Yeah, we still have all those that you would have been on with the board. We still have online. We've also increased some of our permanent supportive housing. Linda Toomey down at Sienna Francis brought on 50 units in tiny homes. Excellent project that was brought on. Increased some of that permanent supportive housing. We could always use more. I think permanent supportive housing is the right strategy in many cases. The issue is it just doesn't have a lot of turnover because people enter that housing program and stay in that housing program. We have revamped our coordinated entry work. We used to have a process where you entered rapid rehousing, which is a shorter program. For a lack of time, I'll stay out of some of the details. But you would enter that twice before you would get a referral to permanent supportive. We've now redone our priorities where we're trying to find the right housing strategy for the individual that's looking for housing. So we've moved rapid rehousing much more to the front for families, individuals that can use a much lighter touch, get them out of a homeless situation or the shelters and get them into housing, and then on to permanent housing. As well as permanent supportive, now we're really trying to focus in on trimorbidities, much more long-term health issues, senior help, those types of things. So overall, we have increased our permanent supportive housing. We continue to ask for those grant opportunities. We have our federal grant going in right now. It actually is due to the federal government on the 27th of this month. We have bonus dollars of about $780,000 that were available to the community, and I have programs that have applied for all those bonus dollars. In addition, we have close to about $1 million for domestic violence bonus dollars, and quite a few of those dollars have been requested as well. So fingers crossed we'll turn that into the federal government and hopefully increase some of those resources.
Another thing to consider when we're talking about solutions and working collaboratively as a community is to know that, the COC, they do this application every year and they bring more money in, maybe for new projects. Kind of depends. The scoring is very competitive, down to the point sometimes. And communities who do not actively ensure that their community is not criminalizing homelessness lose points in that competition. So that's something to remember. If we are moving forward policies that might criminalize homelessness, that could affect our overall funding as a community from HUD.
Do we still have the homeless review team in place? Is that still utilized? Okay. And then lastly, there's an organization called Unite Us that is for lack of a better, easy, I guess, to understand. Sorry, my time.
Just finish quickly, yeah.
Okay. Can I just go on because I have?
Oh, sure. Second round, yep.
So it is electronic record for social services. And that's one of the things that when you talk about a coordinated response, that back even when I was on the board, we saw that lack, and I think we still do, of that coordinated response because people move around. And so that may be something we want to engage in a conversation about that might be helpful. But in all of this, I think that one of the takeaways, I guess, is we know, and we have known, and we will continue to know, that housing is the solution. And it comes in many different forms. And so I just say I offer whatever assistance I can give you to move that initiative along or that conversation along. Just having you here to explain the ins and the outs and having the experts here is, I think, really, really beneficial. But just know we're here because if they're not taken care of, ultimately, as you heard today, with 19% of our folks that are incarcerated are either homeless or near homeless, it's going to affect us in one way or another. And so we're here to help with any solution that there is possible that we can help
Yeah,
with.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Borgensen, and know that, I kind of feel the same way. Any solution that we can be a part of, within the city and the mayor's office, we want to be collaborative. We want to be working with folks directly, one-on-one, and making sure that we know that it's a complex solution. There's going to be complex solutions, not going to meet the needs of everyone involved, but also having the reminder that, people who experience homelessness in Omaha are people who belong to our community. And they deserve our service as public servants just as much as anyone else. So, we have to have solutions that consider everyone.
And lastly, I just want to commend HEAL. And I have the email that you sent me, Tamara, with the article. That was a great article that I have to send to the commissioners, but it is about HEAL and their organization and what they've done for people with providing addressing their medical needs. And so I just want to say thank you, and thank you to everybody that does touch our homeless population, because again, it isn't one issue that causes someone to be homeless. There are multiple issues, and it isn't always a mental health or substance abuse issue. And that's a misnomer, and that's a fear-mongering, in my opinion, conversation that continues. That is not the reality. There are people who have come on hard times. There are people who, again, it could be medical, it could be gambling, it could be just a private, whatever the issue is. So there are a multitude of issues that cause someone to become homeless. But I just want to thank all of you who work with our homeless population. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for being here. Tamara, thank you for what you do, and we're here to help in any way we can. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments in the chamber? If not, anybody else wanting to comment on this item? If not,
Yes, this is Stacy Knable again. Can I speak for just a
Stacy,
second?
I'm so sorry. It's one round per person, but Tamara gave her email and phone number earlier if you want to continue the dialogue with her. All right. Yeah, unfortunately, we do have to move on. Thank you so much for your presentation today and for being here today. Appreciate it. Okay, well, we did have another presentation, which we will still have. I'm going to bump up the public hearing on the license briefly because we have a couple friends who have been patiently waiting for us. So we're going to take that on first under 5A. I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing for item A, which is related to a public hearing for Class C license for 30 Hop Omaha LLC at 114 North 145th Street, Omaha, Nebraska 68154, with manager application for Andrew Kiker. Hopefully I pronounced that all right. So public hearing is now open for this item. Is there any comments or questions from anybody?
I think,
Go ahead.
it's okay. I think this would be south of Dodge, even though it says 115 North. I don't want to have citizens misunderstanding. You'll be, I think, a block and a half or thereabouts south of Dodge Street at 145th, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So
Very good.
that was answered.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan, and the applicant said yes, for the record. Commissioner Boyle? Is that city limits?
Yes.
Dan Esch, Douglas County Clerk. So,
Boys Town.
yeah, but it's still, it's technically not, I mean, yeah, it's surrounded by the city of Omaha, but it's actually, Douglas County is the one that has to approve it, so, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item? If not, I will close the public hearing. What is the will of the board?
I move for approval.
Motion by Morgan to approve, second by Rogers. Please vote.
We lost Milford. I think we're gonna wait
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, and thanks for being here. Thanks for your patience.
Much success.
We will go back to presentations. Item B, Nebraska Memorial Forest Proposal by Director Holm.
Thank you, Commissioners, and good morning. Kent Holm, Environmental Services Director. Nebraska Memorial Forest proposal was founded to my desk kind of through Sheriff Hansen, who had forwarded it to me, a letter from Jim Meyer, who is the kind of the founder of the effort, which is a statewide effort, and I have some handouts coming around for you. I had a few technical issues, so I went back to standard paper. So that's what you have in front of you. The packet in front of you has just a couple of kind of FAQs for you. The Memorial Forest is really an effort to recognize veterans who have lost their lives in the service of our country. And this particular forest is designed to be at multiple locations across the state. If you look in your packet, I believe it's on page maybe 4 or 5, there's a list of, or excuse me, the third page, listing of different places that trees have been planted already, and I know that they're continuing their efforts. The gist of the program is that for the county's potential participation would be to plant 50 trees. They would provide a couple of years of maintenance for those trees and then provide some of the website and tree inventory database support. And basically what this is, if you look at page 4, there is a picture of a sign there. There would be one sign on the property which identifies who's sponsoring this particular tree site, and then there would be a QR code there. And there are not individual signs for the individual trees, but the QR code takes you to a website where all that information is there. There's a GPS coordinate for each tree. So a particular person that's assigned to a particular tree, the family member can find that based on that QR code and that information on the website. So the county's responsibility in this would be to provide the signage. And I don't think we could rule out potentially going after some grant or some other funds that, so it would not be county taxpayer dollars. So that's something that we could look at. We would establish the GPS coordinates, and then we would have ongoing maintenance after year 2. So I did want to show you a map, and okay. So looking at the West Campus, a proposed area for the tree planting would be the red or brown shaded area, which would be just to the north of the existing law enforcement center. This would be a particular specific area that could be identified by signage right there, and has a nearby parking lot and so on. So those are some of the things that they are looking for in the site. So at this point, happy to entertain any questions, and basically just looking for the board's support of the project. If they feel that this is something that we want to participate in, and if so, I would bring back a resolution at your next board meeting with some specifics. And there are still some specifics that I would want to work out with Mr. Meyer in the program.
Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Borgeson.
Thank you. You mentioned that we would be responsible for paying for the signage.
Just, yes, for the one sign that
There you
would,
go.
would.
Okay, I was just going to ask you
yeah.
what the cost was.
Yeah.
That would be in only how many spots? All those spots you have highlighted in the?
Just, there would just be one sign. And then that sign has a QR code, which then goes to a website that identifies all of the coordinates for the various trees that are planted there. And that's the way the signage works. So just one sign, that would be the sign obligation for us.
But if it's in, say it's in Cunningham Lake, I think I read that.
Oh, yes, those signs are the responsibility of whoever owns that property. That's not our responsibility.
That wouldn't
Yes,
be our-
I'm sorry, that,
All of Douglas County sites wouldn't be our
no,
responsibility?
no,
only
just this one
where
site.
we- Okay, all right,
Just,
thank you.
just the one site, yeah.
Okay, appreciate it.
Commissioner Boyle?
So just looking at the map of the site you're proposing, would that preclude development or expansion of Douglas County on that site? I mean, so,
If they wanted to expand the building, for example.
right, or for other services, just like at 42nd Street, we just, you know, decided to build a building there. I mean,
Sure.
down the road, what if, I mean, would we be able to?
If that's a concern of the board, then we would want to look at a different site that's perhaps further away from a building.
Yeah, or build, I don't know if it's possible to build it on an area where it's not buildable, you know, like
Okay.
floodplain or something like that.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Just on my end, quick 10 seconds. Given the tight budget, if you can't find any grant money for the signage, that definitely would be great. I know it's not a lot, but you know, it's pretty tight this year. Appreciate it. Anybody else on this? Otherwise, today it's just a presentation, but there's some interest with comments. Commissioner Rogers.
Are you able to get an assessment of what Commissioner Boyle just said? Because I'm thinking, if anything ever's built, it's going to be on the eastern part of that, other than right there. Can you just verify that to make sure? I mean, the site looks good. Can you verify
Sure.
that?
I'll have
answer that
conversation
question?
with Jeff McGill.
Okay.
And yeah, I'll be able to report back on that. And commissioners, if there are any other questions that you have in the coming days, please let me know. If there's any questions over the materials that I forwarded, please let me know.
Perfect. Thank you
Otherwise,
very much.
I'll come back with a resolution in some form.
All right.
Okay.
Appreciate it, Kent.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, that concludes our presentations. We already did public hearing, so we'll jump into committee discussion. Under finance, we have budget report as presented, as well as the fee report also as presented. Yes.
One thing,
Oh, on which item?
the budget,
Okay, go ahead.
and Lori can add to what I was going to say. We have a budget meeting up in 903 at 1 p.m. today. We'll have John Ewing there and some others concerning a matter that of really great importance. And I'm not sure who all will be there concerning DOTComm and so on. So I wanted to make that known to the other commissioners, what it's going to be a discussion of some serious dollars.
Thank you. Yep, Finance Committee meeting, 1 p.m. upstairs, 903. Otherwise, we have under Human Resources, weekly personnel report from Civil Service also as presented. Today, we have one item in executive session under the category of litigation. Do I have a motion and second to go into exec session? Motion by Rogers. Second by, I think it was Friend. Second by Friend. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. The board will now go into executive session for the purpose of litigation.
motion to reconvene and adjourn made by Commissioner Morgan outside of Legislative Chamber, second by Commissioner Boyle. The motion passed 6-0. Commissioner Kavanaugh was absent. The meeting adjourned at 12:12 p.m.